touchdown, basket. Seven yards for the score.
Here's what they're in 22 personnel, 2 backs, 2 tight ends. And it's McCamey to basket. That's it. Now watch. Gordon does a pretty good job. He doesn't get his hands on him. He fell that little stutter. I like what he's doing, but he's got to keep his eyes on the receiver. As soon as his head.
2 backs and 2 tight ends. Play fake to Moore, looking up top for basket. Got him behind his man. Flag down, the catch is good at the 1-yard line. He got in behind Ernest Gordon, but it didn't matter. The basket comes up limping a little bit.
Well, again, this is the only pass they've shown throwing out of this formation, what Ernest Gordon does. Now, he does a better job. I like him to be putting his hand right there. He's looking up. It's a tough call.
Top on the 6th Street, fly in my eyes, see the envy me. Passing it off like CP3. Shawty, she calling me MVP. I be on time, it's something you ain't never seen before. They call me the Dama, really want my whole team to score. Damn, yeah, too icy, yeah, too clean, yeah, my zone, yeah, 2-3, yeah, got shooters that hit from deep, bust like Giannis, yeah, too mean. Bright lights like we at the garden, on P, don't even started. Whole team walk through me to party. If I can't make the play, I'ma lob it. If you jump, that's right on your head. Had to put him to sleep, go to bed. I'm a star, drop 50 and left. From the logo, like I'm Steph. Put it up, knock him down every time. Going hard like my life on the line. Catch me on the course, I would've down. Never losing, I put it on mine. Had to get out my shell, I've been laying low. They get real when it comes to the playoffs. You fight with me, know it's a chaos.
cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the Pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Got to hit the triple hey there. There's everybody. All right. Happy. Hold on. I got to do it because if I don't. While I intro the show, Adam Sandler, Thanksgiving song. Can't believe the Mets traded Darryl Strawberry there, Ed. I probably was in diapers. Very exciting show for you today. My name is Ryan Tamori. Welcome to the Pit Press Live. I want to wish everybody out there a happy Thanksgiving. I'm not spanning the globe. I'm actually house sitting for our one and only friend, Jacob Neff. So I'm coming to you live from his kitchen. Again, want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Our sponsors, Hydro Bar, affordable solar, affordable service. Did I say Hydro Bar? Tim Baca, Tim Sr. over at Hydro Bar. Turquoise Desert Tap Room, Dulce River Bakery and Coffee. Dulce River Bakery and Coffee. The clapping's getting to my head too. Coming up here, I'm going to intro Nick and Ed, Road to the Pit, even though they're talking to a football player. Rick isn't on, but our St. Pius X Sartans are playing for the state title on Saturday. Guest Bryan Thomas, wide receiver for your Sartans, our Sartans. I hope that it's St. Pius by 1 million for this alumni. 8:30, Kenny Thomas is going to join us. 9 o'clock, Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News. But I'm going to throw it over to these guys. He's been a Lobo fan since 1970, and he's the voice of the Western New Mexico Mustangs. His name is Mr. Ed Nunez. Ed, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ryan. Like you mentioned, we've got a great guest. I think he's on somewhere, but we're ready to rock and roll.
And not to overshadow your son, a St. Pius alumni from 2010. I was just thinking about things I accomplished at St. Pius. It was probably drinking, but Mr. Nick Nunez, you can catch him. on the call Pro View on Saturday. It's you and Ed, right? It's you and your dad, right?
No, I'll be down in Santa Rosa actually doing the 2A state championship between Santa Rosa and Texaco. But my dad, Ed Nunez, will be on the call in Bloomfield. As you mentioned, Ryan, St. Pius taking on the 1-seed Bloomfield, who is undefeated. So that would, should be a good game. Looking forward to seeing the outcome of that one.
I wish Rick was on here again. Two-time offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza and the St. Pius Sardins. I'm going to bring in our guests and throw it over to you guys. I'll be back in about 30, 45 minutes. I hope this kid doesn't hate me, but I'm going to bring him on, and he doesn't know me. Bryan, as a 2005 alumni from St. Pius X, not a very Christian way to do this, but kick some ass on Saturday. I'm going to throw it over.
All right.
I'm going to throw it over to Ed Nunez. You get good luck on Saturday, man.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Ryan. As we mentioned, welcome to Road to the Pit. I'm your host, Ed Nunez, along with my co-host, Nick Nunez, a play-by-play announcer and producer for ProView Networks. And as he mentioned, he's got the 2A call on Saturday with Santa Rosa taking on Texaco, and I'll be in Bloomfield for the number 1 seed, the Bloomfield Bobcats, taking on the number 2 seed, the St. Pius Sardins. And our very special guest tonight is senior wide receiver for the St. Pius football team, Bryan Thomas. Bryan had 5 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown versus Espanola Valley in the Class 4A semifinal game last week, a game that my son and I had the call on. Scored on a 47-yard touchdown reception from quarterback Isaiah Carpenter. On the season, Bryan has 738 yards, touchdown, and 10 touchdowns on the season. He also runs track and field for the Sardins, 2024 Metro champion in the 400 meters, 2024 District Runner of the Year, 2024 4A fourth place 200 medley, and the 2024 4A third place in the 400 medley. Bryan, and as we mentioned, they'll take on Bloomfield on Saturday at 1 p.m. for the 4A championship. Bryan, welcome to the Road to the Pit. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Bryan, I had a brief conversation with Bloomfield head coach Mike Kovacs about an hour ago. I covered the game in 2022 when they beat Silver. So I know Coach Kovacs a little bit, and I told him I'd call him Friday. I don't want to. This is a machine, man. Right? This is a machine. Okay, so they average 48.72 points a game, while yielding 5.5 points per game. The defense has has come up with 7 shutouts. It's going to be it's a test for the Sardins. But how excited are you to be playing for a state championship this season?
I'm very excited, and I think that goes along with our coaches and the rest of my teammates, and definitely think it should be a good game. And
a good game, in the quarters against Grants, and then a good game last week against Espanola Valley. And the Espanola Valley had come in wanting to set the tone as far as being physical and running the ball. And one of the things Coach Flake said to me last week when I talked to him after the game is that he wanted the Sardins to get up on the scoreboard and then make Espanola Valley come from behind, which everything went according to script, man. It did. Definitely. And you made them go second and long, behind the sticks for a running team that likes to dominate the line of scrimmage. Talk a little bit about that game, and talk a little bit about how the offense, you guys are in a groove. You're in a groove. And you'll need to be, because this Bloomfield team has picked off 20 passes, man. They picked off 20. And you already know all this, right? It's just going to be a good game. So talk a little bit about how the team right now is in a groove, beating Grants and then beating a very physical Espanola Valley team. Talk about how you guys are feeling going down to Bloomfield on Saturday.
Like you said, we've been in the groove, and we're definitely feeling really good offensively and defensively. So I think, defensively, we've seen a lot of different things, like those running teams like Moriarty and Espanola, and a lot of different passing teams as well. So I think our defense is definitely prepared and, battle tested, like Coach Flake likes to say. And same thing with our offense, right? We've been cooking lately. And I think if we keep that up, the scoreboard will definitely fall in our favor. So that's the plan, at least. So
it's got to be exciting. Like I said, I think I talked to Coach Flakes, and you got a lot of sophomores on the team. You're the seasoned veteran, man. And and I thought, Isaiah Carpenter found you with some strikes. He had one bad pass, but he had a clean pocket to throw from. And I thought he threw some strikes to you on those crossing patterns and slants. I thought he played very well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
One more thing, if you like our show, make sure you Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Son, your question for Bryan.
Yeah, Bryan was doing the game on Saturday with my dad. Thought you played a really good game, man. You had 5 catches again for 118 yards and a 47-yard touchdown reception. Was that your longest touchdown catch of the year, Bryan?
I don't think so. I think I had a 50-something reception against Valencia during the season, but it's definitely up there.
Yeah. Well, man, I mean, you went untouched. You know, you were in the slot. You went on a little skinny post or whatever you guys call it, and he hit you in stride, and then it was a foot race. Nobody was going to catch you, and that's that track speed that you have. I wanted to ask you about, I think it was your last catch, and it was towards the end of the third quarter before the start of the fourth. It was 2nd and 10 from the St. Pius 22. Isaiah Carpenter's in the shotgun. He throws it to you, and you got to make an adjustment for that catch, man. You had to contort your body. You were falling down. Tell us a little bit about what was going through your head when you made that catch.
Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, I saw it when I was going down. I think we both kind of knew as I was running my route that it was going to me. So I was definitely ready, and it was a little bit outside, and I saw it. So I was like, I got to come down with this ball. So I kind of like turned around, and I guess I went up for it and just focused and came down with it. So
you are the second leading receiver on this team. Cale Cox-Liggins eclipsed the 1,000-yard mark his sophomore season. But I really like the way that Coach Flakes uses you, Bryan, where you line up on the line of scrimmage. Sometimes you're right behind the offensive line. You're almost kind of like a tight end or kind of an extra halfback back there. And I've seen, one of your catches on Saturday, you kind of leaked out. I don't know if it was a designed screen or you were just out in the flat, and then you got a lot of yards after the catch too. So talk about how you can be used in such a dynamic way in this offense.
Yeah, I think that, like you said, Cale, really good receiver, and we have a bunch of other ones too. So like we put me where we need me and where they thought I would do the best. And that's just kind of worked out. So, and a lot of us, we can switch wherever we can go, kind of depending on the play we're running. But I think that it's just like throughout the season, we tested things out, and it's just worked out the best with me at like kind of a tight end slot receiver, more like that. And I think like it also helps because I can block and stuff. So that's always nice to have. So.
Yeah, well, your sophomore tailback, Urshel Alloway Jr., had a fantastic season, 20 rushing touchdowns. Going into the Espanola game, he had another one against Espanola Valley, so give him 21 on the season, 1,600 rushing yards going into the Espanola Valley game. And, yeah, you have to – you're definitely a part of that blocking scheme, along with the offensive line that created some holes and some opportunities for Urshel. I wanted to ask you, Bryan, about kind of the growth that we've seen from your junior year to your senior year. Your junior year, you had 485 yards receiving, 3 receiving touchdowns, and you've almost doubled up on yards, and you've tripled up on touchdown receptions. Talk about what the biggest strides you made going into your senior season. Sorry.
Well, I think that a lot of it was also like not only me, right, as I've just gotten older and more mature, I've kind of like figured out the offense more. And I think it also like I've grown with the rest of the offense, and all of us have definitely like became more of a team. And I think that's what's made us so good this season, because all the talent was there last season, right? But I think that this season, like we all know each other, and it's just like we've grown as a group. And I think that's really helped. Like, we always know where one person's going to be or where someone else is going to be. So,
yeah. Well, you guys are just so hard to defend, man. I mean, I can't wait to see. I'm going to watch the game. Obviously, I can't see it because I'll be in Santa Rosa. But Bloomfield has a stellar defense, man. I think they pitched 7 shutouts this year. But you guys, man, they got Cale Cox-Liggins out on the boundary, you in the slot, Urshel Alloway, a dynamic tailback. And you guys got some other good receivers as well. Curtis Flake's son, sophomore receiver, is very good. The freshman Christian Morales is also pretty solid. So it's going to be an interesting matchup, man. I can't wait to see it. Dad, I'm going to turn it back to you.
I'll tell you one thing. I think Coach Flakes deserves a lot of credit for the offensive scheme that he's using. Because if you think about it too, I think, my son mentioned Cale Cox-Liggins, 6'5", athletic. He out-jumped. That quarterback for Espanola Valley actually didn't do a bad job on him last week.
Yeah.
But he's overmatched. And Isaiah saw that. You got a 6'5" guy against a 5'7" dude, you're going to go at it, man. And so I thought Cale Cox-Liggins, my son mentioned the catch you made, you had to adjust, and you did.
Mhm.
But Cale Cox-Liggins jumped over that dude to make that catch. And, you know, that's just brilliant athleticism. But if you look at your numbers, they always say that. Look inside the numbers, 738 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. That's solid. That's real solid because, you know, I think the route running, I think you run solid routes. And I think Isaiah Carpenter trusts you, and he knows you're going to be there when he throws the ball, or even if he overthrows or underthrows, he's going to trust you to make that catch. So I think one of the things I asked Coach Flakes, we had him on earlier in the season, was, are you surprised that everything came to fruition so soon? You're playing, you know, you got a lot of sophomores. You're the senior. You're the veteran on this team, man. You know, you're the you know, people that the guy that's been in the program when Coach Montoya was there. And so, you know, you've been around. But I think, you know, my son mentioned Herschel Holloway maybe bottled up for 5 runs in a row and then spring for 82. You know, so and we mentioned all the other playmakers, and you've got Colby Padilla and Zeller on D. Jackson Mulville made a nice play last week, man. Jackson Mulville made a nice play. So you've got some playmakers, and believe me, you'll need every single one of them on Saturday, man, for that machine. You definitely will. Got a quote here from Coach Flakes. I talked to him about an hour ago. Bryan is a natural leader, both on and off the field, always motivating his teammates and setting a great example with his work ethic. He is a crucial asset to our team and the success we have had. He consistently gives 100%, 110% in every game and at every practice where it matters most. So he's a big fan of yours as well, and I think he's done a great job there. He really has. St. Pius, by the way, a little history, playing for their first championship since 2016 when they beat Artesia. And I covered that game, and the St. Pius quarterback, Drew Ortiz, had a great game, man. Drew Ortiz had a legendary game. So Sarton fans, of course, are hoping that it's going to be the same thing on Saturday. You'll have a lot of fans out there, I'm sure. Let me get back to these questions. St. Pius defense versus Espanola Valley last Saturday. You know, and my son and I had talked to James Barron from the Santa Fe New Mexican, and they had seen Espanola Valley. We hadn't seen them. And my son and I were like, hey, this is going to be speed versus power. It's going to be a very interesting game. But they didn't score their first offensive touchdown till late in the third quarter. Can you tell us about that a little bit, about how that's kind of changed things? And as Coach Flakes had mentioned, put Espanola Valley behind the clock. They like to control the clock. They like to go on these 10-minute drives, and that didn't happen. Maybe a couple of them they did. They had a couple of drives like that, but for the most part, St. Pius controlled the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely huge. I mean, all really important that we got up early like that. And I think as an offense, throughout the season, we've really trusted our defense and relied on them for those kinds of situations, because we knew if they had the ball, they could take it down and take down a whole quarter off the clock, which is kind of a lot. But we knew our defense was going to step up and, get us the ball back, and they did. And that's what happened. And so we got up early, and they did score in that third quarter, which put, I guess, a little more pressure on us, but we still did all right. Still scored a couple more. So.
No, it's the game plan went as like Coach Flake said, to what you wanted. It went exactly the way, because if they control the clock, they had I believe against Taos, an 11 or 10 minute drive against Taos, and they controlled the ball for a long period of time and were able to impose their will at the line of scrimmage. And Coach Flakes had mentioned one of your guys was just throwing himself at the center and disrupting their whole blocking scheme. He didn't get any credit for any tackles or sacks or assists, but all he did was sacrifice himself on every play.
Yeah, definitely. We had a guy in the center that just, kind of dove down there. And really important, also something else Coach Flakes always preaches is just doing your 1/11th, right? So the numbers at the end of the game really don't matter. It's a win or a loss, right? It's just if you come out at the end of that week 1-0, and that it comes with doing your job, right? And if your job is just to dive at the center, then that's what we're gonna do. So, and I think that we've all really come to trust that and do all that and do our jobs. So
I'll tell you what, that's a big thing, because they had that running attack. They averaged 5.8 yards per carry, and I thought St. Pius did a great job. You had a great defensive effort. Nick, go ahead, man.
Yeah, Bryan, you are one of 14 seniors on this roster for St. Pius. You're listed as a captain. Talk about the mentorship role that you play on this team.
Yeah, for sure. Me, along with the other seniors and the other captains, definitely kind of knew with like a younger age team that we'd kind of have to step up, make sure we're all like ready, because we knew that this is our last year. This is our last shot at the championship, and we want to be there, right? So we want to do that. We have to get there. It's our last chance, and we knew that, we have to step up and be leaders and lead the team. And I think that we've done a good job, everyone. And I think not only just the seniors, but I think everyone's kind of started to step up and, just do their job and start leading the team. So really good to see.
You guys, this is a road trip to Bloomfield. That's about a 4.5 hour drive. But you guys have experience with that this season. When you guys went down to Portales, that was the game where I was like, Pius is for real. I mean, Portales was a state runner-up last year. They've got a strong tradition in football. That's a long road trip. But you guys have been through this before. That's got to give you a little confidence going into Saturday.
Yeah, no, for sure. We've had a few long bus trips this season, and we really try to not let it affect us, right? We try to stay focused on the bus on the way up there, and then when we get there, really lock in before the games and just treat it like a normal game, like, kind of ignore the bus part, which has definitely worked out for us so far. So, and I think it will on Saturday.
I want to ask you about your track and field season as a junior, Bryan. Again, we mentioned you were the 2024 Metro champion in the 400 meter, 2024 District Runner of the Year. You took fourth place in the 200 medley and third place in the 400 medley. But that Metro championship is really what I want to focus on, man. I mean, you ran against some of the best runners in the city. Tell us a little bit about that. What your time was, who you competed against. Tell us about that accomplishment.
Yeah, it was really, really fun. I remember, I think I ran 49 something in the Metro championship. But I definitely remember it was me and Cleveland, this kid from Cleveland who was there, right? And it came down right to that last like 25 meters, I'd say.
Yeah.
When I passed him, and it was really close, but it was super fun. Definitely a good experience. So,
what other events do you run in track and field, Bryan?
I run the 100, 200, and I do the long jump as well.
Okay. Who on the team can beat you in a 40-yard dash?
Coach Flakes would say he can beat me, and Herschel would also say he can beat me, but I think I got them both. So
fair enough, man. Fair enough. Dad, I'll turn it back to you.
Bryan, speed kills, man, right? Speed kills. Talk a little bit about how track has helped you. Football coaches are always encouraging track their guys to run track. How has track helped you maybe with your start at the line as far as your route running? Different running, right? Different skills. I understand that, but talk a little bit about how track has helped you in your football game.
Yeah, it's for sure helps me. It's just definitely like, especially with running the 400 meter, it's a lot of it's a mindset, right? It's super hard. It's just grueling. That last 100 meters is super hard to get through, and it's a lot like like a football game. It's not easy, and you just kind of have to get through it. It's also, as long with the track, it's definitely made me faster on the field, which for sure helps, getting off the line, running routes, stuff like that. It's just a lot faster. So definitely pretty important. And I think Coach Flakes would agree that running track is really important. So
Coach Flakes' second year at Pius, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Dave Montoya was there before, and Dave Montoya did a heck of a job there. Are you surprised? How long did it take really for you to trust Coach Flakes in his program? He came in last year. His son came in, Curtis Flakes III, one of the best defensive backs. I think he's got 11 passes defensed on the season. You bought in, Isaiah Carpenter, Cale Cox-Liggins. Bought in a lot of different players that came to Pius. How long did you it take to really embrace his style, his coaching? It changed the whole culture, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely changed the whole culture, and I think what changed about it was that he treated it like a culture. It wasn't just like a football team. It was like a family, right? And that we preached that a lot. And I think that it took, I would say everyone bought in pretty quick, because over that's spring season, we still kind of had a while with him before that first season, and morning workouts and stuff. and going through like morning workouts and all that summer stuff is definitely not easy. And I think that kind of brought us all closer and, allowed us to trust in the new coaching staff and all these new players. So.
It's because Coach Flakes has a background, played at the University of New Mexico, cornerback. We had him on our show earlier, and he talked about Coach Mendenhall. It was his defensive coach back then, who's the UNM head football coach now. So Coach Flakes learned a lot under Coach Mendenhall and other coaches. And I'm really impressed with what he's done. We just got a couple more questions for you. As we mentioned, St. Pius, the number 2 seed, will take on the number 1 seed, Bloomfield, this Saturday at 1 p.m. For the 4A championship, a game that I've got the honor of being able to broadcast. I'm excited. Anytime you see a championship game in any sport, and I know the atmosphere, that atmosphere down in Bloomfield, man, the town's going to all be out there, and I think sometimes winning a road game is more fun sometimes, and it's a challenge. We're not saying that. All due respect to the Bobcats. They're undefeated, number 1 ranked for a reason, and I really think the world of Coach Kovacs and his program. You didn't play Bloomfield this year. You played them in the first game of last season. You lost 40-21. They're undefeated, as my son mentioned. They have seven shutouts on the season. Tell us your thoughts. I'm sure Coach Flakes has been, building this all up, and you guys have won a quarterfinal and a semifinal. As we mentioned, St. Pius's first championship appearance since 2016. Tell us your thoughts on the matchup, man. I couldn't be more excited for you. I've got chills already.
Yeah, we're all really excited, and I think it's also kind of an important game to us because, as you know, like last year we lost to them, and that was our first game, and I think we're all really excited to like go back down there and face them again, which is pretty huge. Not an opportunity that a lot of people will get, right? So, and we've been talking about this. We've beaten a good amount of teams that we lost to last year, and we're hoping to keep that up. And I definitely think we have a shot, and if we keep playing like we do, that we can win this game. So,
yeah, we've got a couple of days away, man. It's the build up, right? I'm sure you wake up. I know you got schoolwork too. You go to Pius, man. You're there for education. I told my son that when he was there at St. Pius, hey man, you ain't here to be no basketball star. You're here to get the grades. He did way more than I did, and so you got other things to think about. But it's hard not to. You wake up. I'm sure you're thinking about that. Why wouldn't you? Because the sounds of the game, the feel of the game, right? Yeah. So one more question for you, and then I'll turn it over.
I turned out all right, Ed, too, from going to St. Pius.
Ryan Tamora, yes, he turned out great. So did Rick Thompson, our other St. Pius grad, who was a 2-time All-State lineman with San Juan Mendoza back in the day. So got a lot of Pius, feel on this set. My brother and sister went there. I went 1 year to the old Pius, and my wife and I put a lot of money into our son. They went to Pius, and it paid out, and I'm glad we did. I always say that. Your brother Aiden was an offensive tackle for the Sartans and also played on the basketball team. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that, because you got one big guy. Aiden's a big dude and light on his feet, and then you got a sprinter in you. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely different like skill sets between me and my brother. But I think that kind of helped us, right? Like that kind of made me more physical, especially on the football field. And I think I like made him more like faster, I guess. I could argue that, I guess. But yeah, definitely pretty cool, And he was really athletic, right? If you ever seen him play basketball.
Oh, we did. Plenty of times. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so very athletic. So yeah, I think it was pretty cool, having a brother, especially on the team, definitely cool.
Nick, do you have any more questions for
just Brian? One more for you, Brian. It's an exciting time to be a Sarton in the athletic department. The boys soccer team got to the state soccer championship. The girls soccer team got to the semifinal. Girls volleyball repeated as back-to-back state champions. You guys have the opportunity to go and get a state championship. Just talk to us what the vibe is like on campus. I imagine everybody's pretty excited.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, definitely. Everyone's really excited. And I think hopefully we're going to get a lot of people to actually drive up there to Bloomfields and, support us. So, but yeah, for sure. I think that everyone's pretty excited, especially after, the soccer and volleyball, all that stuff has ended. They're all pretty like, it's like we could get another one here in the, before Christmas. So I think, we're all pretty ready.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it, Bryan. Wish you the best of luck on Saturday. Thanks for being on with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bryan, good luck. Thanks again for being on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Definitely. I know I sound like a crazy old man, but damn it, do it for San Juan. But good luck to you on Saturday, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, that I don't know if you guys want to recap. I appreciated that kid, and he's probably scared of me now. I really appreciate that you guys getting that interview. I'm going to toss it back to you because I'm sure you guys want to break down some of the state title games, which again, I don't pay that much attention to high school athletics here, but damn it, I'm going to say it again. I'm so amped that St. Pius is there. And then Rick can join the show, but we bleed black and gold. I thought that was awesome to have that kid on. So thank you guys. I'm going to throw it back to you guys.
You know, Nick, I like that kid, man. I really do. A very humble kid. But, you know, I started thinking about just the way Coach Flakes uses his guys and puts them in the best position to succeed on that football field. I've had them, I think this will be my 5th game that I've had of them this year. And I've been impressed with the way, you know, their defense last week came to play. They're going to need it. Yeah, and Nick, it's funny, Coach Kovacs was just calling me now. I don't know if you saw the show, but I couldn't answer from Bloomfield. I couldn't answer. I talked to him earlier. But they're going to need it all on Saturday. This is a machine, man. Again, 48 points, 78 points per game. They allow 5.5 points per game. Their quarterbacks and running backs, they've got some playmakers on both sides of the ball. I don't think there's any doubt it's the biggest challenge. You know, it's a big challenge for the Spartans.
Yeah, definitely. You know, obviously the best team that they're going to play all year, though. They did have good tests playing West Mesa in the first game of the season. We had that game together. West Mesa was very physical with them. They went down to Las Cruces, played Oregon Mountain. That was their only other loss on the season. I mentioned that Portales win that I was very impressed with, that they got that. So it is going to be a challenge, but St. Pius has playmakers. And if their defense can rise to the level of the physicality that it did last Saturday against Espanola Valley, again, credit to that defensive line, Michael Deller, linebacker Colby Padilla, all those guys. If they can come to play and get physical on Saturday, they're going to be in it, man. They're going to be in it. They got to score. Isaiah Carpenter's got to take care of the football. He did better against Espanola Valley. They're going to need a good game from Urshel Holloway Jr. They're going to need a good game from Cale Cox-Liggins. Everybody's going to have to do their part. But if they come to play, I think they're going to be right there.
They've got, as a team, Bloomfield, 3,095 yards passing, 2,511 yards rushing, 8.6 yards per carry. Now, you mentioned, though, if the pancake flips on both sides, and Coach Kovacs will have to – and I think these are, you know, this thing about Brian Thomas, he's a guy that people might forget about. Look at his numbers, though. 738 yards, 10 touchdowns. That's solid. That's solid. You mentioned Cale Cox-Liggins, 1,000 yards. Everyone expects that. They expect Herschel Holloway to have 100 yards. They expect, you know, Curtis Flakes III to come up with some plays. But you mentioned the unsung guys are Morales, Chase Dabney, Isaiah Carpenter. I thought threw the ball very well last week. But remember, Bloomfield's defensive unit has picked off 20 passes, man, and Carpenter has had 4 interceptions the past 2 weeks. So they'll have to take care of the ball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's definitely one of the keys. Anytime you lose the turnover battle, it's hard to win. But no, he was better against Espanola Valley. You know, Coach Flakes. Another thing we should mention: Curtis Flakes has an amazing coaching staff at St. Pius. You know, we've had the opportunity to speak with some of them since we've covered a couple Pius games this year. So I think they're going to have them ready. They're going to have them prepared. They're going to have a good game plan, and it should be a great championship.
One of the coaches, and there's plenty of them, but is Herschel Holloway Sr., the former Albuquerque High Star and former UNM football level player, and he's one of the ones on the staff. And I asked Coach Flakes, who's better, you know, junior or senior, and he said hesitantly it was junior because junior's got more things to work with than senior did as far as training, nutrition. It's way better. You know, that's not a knock on senior. Senior was a heck of a player, man, and a good man. Time I see that guy, I still remember. You know, I had some contact with him when he was a young man, and just a great young man. Let's go down some more of these. You've got the 2A championship, number 1 Texaco versus number 2 Santa Rosa in Santa Rosa. And I'll tell you what, I'm a proud papa. It's your first championship call, man. I'm so excited for you. I really
I
am.
appreciate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did call the 6-man state championship back in 2022.
Oh,
But
you did. That's right.
yeah,
Had a suit on and everything, man. I remember
right.
that.
But no, I'm excited. I am very
tell us about
excited
that.
to go.
Preview this game a little bit.
Yeah, I am very excited to go down to Frank Ortiz Field in Santa Rosa. I've spoken with a couple Santa Rosa alumni already. One of them, David Hossie Sanchez. He's the owner of Sandbar Construction Corporation here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. He's telling me it's going to be an electric atmosphere, man. It's a small stadium. I've never been up there, but it's a small stadium. There's going to be people parking their cars around the fields, and it's just small town football. You know, last year I was in Roy for the Roy Mascaro Gateway Christian 6-man championship. I was the producer there. And people in small towns, they love their football, man. They come out, they support, they get rowdy, they eat before they tailgate. So I imagine the town of Santa Rosa is going to come out. Texaco is going to bring some fans.
Yeah.
So that's the atmosphere piece of it. As far as the matchup itself, Texaco undefeated, 11-0 on the season. They've played a few Texas teams just because of where they're geographically located. They did play Santa Rosa first game of the season. They did beat them 50-0. You did have Santa Rosa head coach David Chavez on the sports desk for ProView Networks on Monday. I think it's going to be a different game. You know, Santa Rosa and Texaco did play 2 times last year, both close games. I think it was 28-26 in the first one played at Santa Rosa. And then Santa Rosa lost to Texaco in the semifinals last year, 29-21. So I think it's going to be competitive. Texaco's offensive line is huge. You and I were talking, Dad. They are probably the biggest offensive line in the state of New Mexico, regardless of class. Almost every single one of their guys is over 250 pounds. If you look on Max Preps, they are huge. They've got one guy that I believe is 300 pounds. Their fullback, number 44, he's over 200 pounds. He's the lead blocker for their tailback, Alex Fuentes. They just grind on you, man, and they just wear you down over the course of the game. Santa Rosa is going to have to be physical, like we talked about St. Pius being physical with Espanola Valley. They're going to have to be physical at the line of scrimmage. But, you know, I think Coach Chavez is going to have them ready. I expect to see a competitive game. Santa Rosa runs that single wing offense. I've never seen it before. I'm having to watch YouTube clips to try to prepare myself so that I can know who has the ball. When you had David Chavez on the sports desk for ProView Networks, he says they work a lot on deception with the single wing offense. They go misdirection. You never know who gets the snap. They fake handoff, just a run-heavy offense. They have, I think, less than 40 pass attempts all season. Santa Rosa's best player is junior Josh Cordova. He leads them in rushing and in rushing touchdowns. So it's going to be a physical game. I can't wait to see it on Saturday.
That single wing tee up, wow! I told you, I've seen a lot of formations, and I haven't seen that. That came with Moriarty. Frank Ortiz was the football coach of Moriarty, and brought that with him to Santa Rosa, and they've been running it for years now. That's a culture there. They expect to run that, and you talk to Hossie Sanchez, and it's spinning here, spinning there. You're going to see that's going to be a great game, and you got a great atmosphere there, as you mentioned, at Santa Rosa on at Frank Ortiz Field on Saturday. The other game, number one in the 3A football, number one St. Mike's, who's undefeated under Joey Fernandez, versus the Dexter Demons, who won on a last-second field goal. You don't hear that too much in high school. They beat Robertson last week, who's a formidable Las Vegas Robertson, a formidable opponent. Talk to us a little bit about that matchup. It'll be at Ivanhead Stadium in Santa Fe.
2 undefeated teams. St. Mike's undefeated, Dexter also undefeated. They have some common opponents. Both teams have played, I think, West Las Vegas and Las Vegas Robertson. Dexter defeated Robertson to get into the state championship. It was a close game, 27-21. I'm curious to see the turnover matchup in that one as well. Dexter's quarterback, CJ Granados, is a sophomore. He's only thrown 1 interception all season long. St. Mike's defense has forced 9 interceptions. They've got 8 fumble recoveries. So 17 total turnovers forced on the year. Something's got to give. These are no doubt the 2 best teams in the 3A class. St. Mike's won the state championship last year, so they're going for back-to-back. I think it's going to be an exciting game for sure.
That is, as you mentioned, Joey Fernandez has done a great job there at St. Mike's. Now, the 5A football championship, and this one here, you sent me a little link about that. the number 1 seed, the Roswell Coyotes, and Jeff Lynn. He's a great guy, man. Love Coach Lynn. I had him on the sports desk last year against number 2 Artesia, and Jeremy Maupin is won a state championship last year, and it's a great coach. Was the former quarterback at Artesia back in the day under Cooper Henderson, and it's at the Wool Bowl in Roswell, and that's going to be a great game as well. And I think Roswell beat Artesia earlier in the season, 44-40.
They did. That was the first win for Roswell. They actually played at Bulldog Bowl. The game was played at Bulldog Bowl, and that was the first win for Roswell at Bulldog Bowl since 2000. This is one of the most storied rivalries in New Mexico high school football. I think, it's no secret to anyone. These teams have played, I think, every year since 1909. That's the tweet that I sent you. And I think most people would find this surprising, but this is according to the Bulldog football Twitter account for Artesia. Artesia actually has a losing record against Roswell. Artesia is 53-70-1, I believe, against Roswell. Most of Roswell's wins came before 1950. After that, the series has been dominated primarily by Artesia. But yeah, it was an excellent state championship last year. Aaron Rivera for ProView Networks will be on the call. Close game this year, like you mentioned, Dad, 44-40. Artesia's quarterback, man, Isaiah Cazares, I believe is how you pronounce his name. 38 touchdown passes, 15 rushing touchdowns. That offense that Jeremy Maupin runs for Artesia is a machine. If anybody knows how to figure it out, it's Jeff Lynn and the Roswell Coyotes. That's going to be a good, exciting game as well.
Coach Lynn is coach at the Lone Star, man. He's coach at the Lone Star level. Just a lot of respect for him. I reached out to him earlier in the year when they had those floods in Roswell, just making sure everybody's okay. And he got back to me. And I just talked to him a couple weeks ago when I had Ladarius Cage on from Valencia, because he was a mentor to Coach Cage. So you're talking about two of the most classy people in all of state history. Jeff Lynn's won several championships. Jeremy Maupin has as well. So that's going to be a great matchup there on Saturday. So finally, the big school game, the number 1 seed La Cueva Bears will take on the number 3 seed, I believe, the Cleveland Storm. And that game will be at Wilson Stadium in Albuquerque, 1 p.m. Sebastian Noel and John Chavez from ProView Networks on that call. And talk a little bit about that. Now, La Cueva beating Las Cruces last week. And Cam Dyer, his availability, people, he tweaked the knee. And if he's not 100%, that could pose a problem. Cleveland's been on a roll, winning about 8 straight. Talk a little bit about that matchup. The Storm has been rushing the ball very well. I think they had a running back run for 250 yards last week. So they've been playing very well. I'll tell you what, James Yotis said that. They beat Centennial, 52-20? They raked them, man. And nobody thought that they would beat them like that. Centennial was undefeated, I believe. And Cleveland has just been on a roll. So tell us what your thoughts are about that matchup.
I watched Cam Dyer interview with James Yotis after the Las Cruces La Cueva semifinal game last week. James Yotis went down to Las Cruces to cover it. Cam stayed in the game after he was hurt. I guess there were 2 plays, I don't know if it was in the first half or in the second half, where someone fell on top of Cam's knee on a run play, and it was heavily wrapped after that. He did stay in the game, but did not have a rushing attempt after he was hurt the second time. So he told James Yotis, look, the game plan didn't call for me to run the ball. If I needed to run the ball, I would. But that's what makes him so dynamic, is his ability to beat you with his arm and with his legs. Bears have a fantastic running back in Chito Lumbrera. They've got so many weapons on both sides of the ball. Mason Posa has been lining up on offense, the Wisconsin commit at the linebacker position, but he had a long touchdown run against Las Cruces in the semifinal. The junior receiver, I believe it's Tyler Montano. I apologize if I'm getting his name incorrect. He's another weapon that they have in the special teams game. So La Cueva looks strong. Turning the page to the Cleveland Storm, quarterback Jordan Hatch, 20 touchdown passes, only 2 interceptions on the season. They lost the first game of the year to Centennial. I think it was 1 touchdown game, and they lost. And they've won every game since then. They avenged that loss to Centennial earlier in the season in the semifinal. They had to travel down to Las Cruces to defeat Centennial. They did. Heath Ridenour is the offensive coordinator under head coach Robert Garza. Coach Ridenour has some state championship success to himself. He's got that offense clicking on all cylinders. This is the third time in a row that La Cueva and Cleveland are meeting in the 6A state championship. 2 years ago, 2022, I don't remember the exact score off the top of my head, but I think La Cueva scored somewhere, or Cleveland scored somewhere in the 70s, and La Cueva scored somewhere in the 60s. That's when Aiden Armenta was the quarterback for La Cueva. And Evan Wysong, I believe, was the quarterback for Cleveland. Last year, it wasn't as close. It was a snow game last year for the state championship. It snowed a lot in Albuquerque, and it was played out in Cleveland. La Cueva won that one 35-14. So, Cleveland's going to come ready. They're going to come hungry, ready to play. Coach Back does a fantastic job with La Cueva. Of course, they're going to be ready to play, and that should be another exciting state championship.
Cleveland, the way they've been running the ball, they've been really hammering it up the middle. So I think linebacker Mason Posa for La Cueva is a big key. The way he roams sideline to sideline, fills gaps, and explodes on you when he hits you. The physicality, that's where the game is going to be won in the trenches. La Cueva, and after they beat Pinnacle to start the season, they look really, really good. And I think the key, too, is how bad is Cam Dyer's knee. They can go other things. They can run other packages. They've got, you mentioned Posa had a long touchdown run from the Wildcat. Cheeto Lambrera, one of the best running backs in the state. They've got a offensive lineman that committed to a big school. They're big and physical. Cleveland is too. Don't count them out. They really have played well since losing to Centennial. And I got to say this, Nick. I think that they played with a chip on their shoulder since they lost that, because everybody kind of counted them out. Everybody said, hey, it's going to be Centennial and La Cueva. And I think Cleveland since then, under Coach Garza, really answered the bell as far as, coming back and playing very well. So, that's our preview. Let's get Ryan Tomari back on here, and we're going to have a live show at 8. But Ryan, is there any comments from any of our listeners or watchers that are worth looking at?
I think a lot of this is definitely a St. Pius heavy, which I think is funny. Theory of caps. Happy holidays, fellas. Starting class of 06, lost in Silver City with link hair. I think he meant pink hair.
Pink, yeah.
Yeah, it used to be, there you go. It used to be a tradition to paint your hair pink. I think Rick and those guys did it during state playoffs. So I don't know if they still do it. Somebody had said they stopped doing it again. I didn't play football. A lot of my buddies played football all 4 years. I still harass Curtis Pino and Paul Ortiz every time I see them. I'm sure Cole McCamey does because he beat him in state in 01. So I don't know. I thought the pink hair tradition was pretty good. Go St. Michael's football. They got a big football championship game as well. Eric Markham, this is a great interview. Good job, gentlemen. Ed, you are the best. I read that one from Rick. John Romero, St. Mike's back in the 80s used to make Pius bead red. LO sort of. Bleed red. Gotcha. Rick, it was 04 Theory of Cap. And John Romero, what a great preview, guys. I didn't know what the 6A game was. So La Cueva and Cleveland, I saw that. And I'll be damned because that's a mighty fine matchup.
No, it's going to be. Yeah, it should be.
Dyer got hurt. 1 o'clock. I mean, I was looking at the bracket and these teams, there's just like no competition. La Cueva beat Las Cruces 47-19. Cleveland beat Centennial 56-20. They're playing that at Wilson Stadium. They can't play that at Community Stadium.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I think Wilson Stadium is closer to La Cueva. It's technically their home site. But I mean, hard to go against Community Stadium, man. That's a nice facility.
It is. I think if they ever blow up UNM football, they should play there for 2 or 3 years. Probably look much fuller in that retrospect. Was there anything this year that you guys took away from the high school football season that's shocked you or out of the ordinary?
Dad, you go first.
I don't think anything shocking. La Cueva's dominance was, I think, when they beat Pinnacle, that maybe made me raise my eyebrows a little bit, because it's a school outside of the Albuquerque region and a well-regarded school in Flagstaff. So when they won that game, I'm like, okay, because everybody's saying Albuquerque teams can't go out and beat anybody else. They did. So I wouldn't call it shocking, but a little like, hey, man, they're really good. They're really good, and they proved that. They were undefeated. They're undefeated. I think the other surprising thing for me, Highland was able to win a semi or a playoff game for the first time in 20 years. And head coach Phil Lovato, I had him on the sports desk a couple of weeks ago. They were down to like 25 players a couple of years ago after COVID. So he built it back up, and they won a playoff game. They lost to Roswell in the quarterfinals, but Highland won a playoff game, and that was something good. I think the other thing that might have surprised me, St. Pius coming to the forefront the way they did, having these sophomores and make it a championship game. So I asked Coach Flakes that, hey, are you surprised that you're this good this fast? You had a couple of sophomores, you didn't think they were ready. I may have thought, hey, this year they're in the championship. And I'm telling you, Ryan, that Bloomfield team, if you look at the stats, man, they score 48.72 points per game, allow 5.5 points per game. So Pius has their work cut out for sure.
That scares me. I just got to go to this, Rick. We also did old man balding cut. I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing they shaved like the top of their head. That's great. Nick, you were going to say something. My bad.
No, you're good. And then while we're on the Pius traditions, Ryan, you always got to remember the boys soccer team. They dye half their head gold and half their head black. I don't know if they do that anymore, but that was also a hair tradition back at SPX.
With Tristani, right, son?
Yep. But back to surprises in New Mexico high school football. Dad, I agree with everything that you said. The Legacy Academy Silverbacks in Class 2A under Coach Bryan Clampett. I've been high on Legacy Academy kind of all season. They made the jump up from 8-man football to 11-man football and started the season out really well, man. Their last game of the season, they lost to Santa Rosa 27-20, and then they lost in the quarterfinals, I believe, to Loving. But Coach Clampett and the Silverbacks had a fantastic season in Class 2A. And, that was probably the biggest surprise. Ryan, we got rematches in the 6A state championship from last year, a rematch for the 5A state championship from last year. St. Mike's is in it again in 3A for the third year in a row. Robertson was in the Final Four. They lost to Dexter in Class 3A. New teams in the 4A state championship this year. Bloomfield did get to the semifinal. They lost to Portales last year, who was the runner-up. Pius got to the first round and lost to Espanola Valley. And then in Class 2A, Texaco won the state championship last year. They're in it again this year. Santa Rosa lost in the semifinal to Texaco last year. So it's been pretty consistent the last couple of years as to who the best teams are, for sure.
I'm totally changing the subject here, but you want to talk about St. Pius. I guess I'll name these guys. This is hearsay. I don't know the whole story, and it pertains to soccer, but my friend Chu, aka David Fevitt, they had won state our senior year in 2004 in soccer. And I guess I'll name drop Colin Brennan, but they had the trophy and like they were celebrating in Chu's car. His nickname's Chu after Chewbacca, and he slammed on the brakes and something happened, and the freshly won state championship trophy went through his windshield.
Oh man,
yeah. So, Pius doing Pius things, but I don't know. I every time I hear like a state championship trophy, think of that story because it's fantastic. But I don't know. I guess it seems like I didn't even look what Artesia did this year. I don't know how far they got, but I always keep my eye out for them, given the Pius rivalry and a lot of good players coming out there. Obviously, Cole McCain, Landry Jones. I'm sure there's a million other more players that have come out of there that I'm not naming, but I don't know when I heard Bloomfield and Portales were good. I mean, I think when I think of New Mexico football, I do think of Artesia, and I do think of Las Cruces, Centennial. Centennial changed its name, right?
That's Oregon Mountain. It used to be Oñate.
That's right, Oñate, because there's two big high schools in Cruces, right? Yeah, I don't know. Those are always, I've never been to the Bulldog Bowl. I've always wanted to go to the Field of Dreams. I've never done it. But I guess, it's just a different world down there. Where can we watch these games this weekend?
Good question, Ryan. The NFHS Network, Google NFHS Network. You got to get a subscription. I believe they offer packages. I don't know the last quote, but it's less than $20 a month, I think, to watch. And you'd be, if you had a month subscription, you'd be able to go watch all of the games. We do get some complaints from time to time from folks who say that they're unable to get onto the stream. What I would suggest, if you are watching the game on the NFHS Network, make sure you have a strong internet connection, preferably Wi-Fi or an Ethernet cord. If you're trying to do it on your mobile device and just using data or an LTE, it may not work. So make sure you have a strong internet connection. Our crews work very hard to make sure that the games are up. They're going to do the same thing this weekend. But yes, the NFHS Network, you can get it on any mobile device.
I appreciate that. I think we are going to take a quick commercial break, give you guys a rest. If you'll join me on the other side to talk some Lobo basketball. Kenny Thomas at 8:30. 9 o'clock, Nick Coppola. We'll ask Nick about New Mexico State might. Hey, when you win one game, you win two. That's called a winning streak. Still in that from Major League 2, which is not as funny as Major League, the first Major League. Sorry, I'm trying to queue up something. I'm a true man. I'm not a very good multitasker here. UNM, I hadn't gone to the last two games. They looked very good, the men's basketball team. I think I'm going to throw out there when we come back, how important is this UNM men's football game? How important is this UNM football game at Hawaii? I need to look up what Braden Schrager, if he's playing, the Hawaii quarterback who's been at, Manning Passing Academy. He's under Timmy Chang's tutelage. Timmy Chang holds tons and tons of records. So, interested in that. I don't know. Maybe I'll get your thoughts on how important this football game is. We do the morning how. We're going to switch that up on Saturday, given the fact that this game is at 9 o'clock Mountain Time, which I think is 6 o'clock in Hawaii. I don't know. Get your thoughts on that, because I think this is a very good. This is a very significant game, given the context of everything that's gone on in the landscape of college football. And also the rumors swirling around that Bronco Mendenhall had interviewed, if you hadn't heard that, had interviewed with Utah State, allegedly. This is all Twitter. This is all Elon Musk bullshit, but I think there's some truth to it. I was trying to figure it out. Obviously, I have a day job. I don't go full journalist all the time anymore. It's hard. Talk about that. But again, we'll get Kenny's thoughts on the basketball team. He'll be joining us at 8:30. Kenny Thomas, former UNM Lobo legend, maybe considered the best men's basketball player in the country. I'm already tired of hearing myself talk. We'll take a quick commercial break, and I'll see you guys on the other side of 8 o'clock. And also feel free to join the show, join the conversation, Twitter, X. When I just said that, I sounded like the SNL skit with the sweaty balls. I sounded like them. Join us on the other side, 8 o'clock. Or Delilah. All right, my name is Bryan Tamori. That was Nick Nunez and Ed Nunez. Looking forward to talking UNM men's basketball and football on the other side of the hour.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
going to hit you with the triple hay again. Looks like your dad didn't jump off. There he is. Perfect. All right. Hey, welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori. Nick Nunez, Ed Nunez joining us. If you didn't catch the first hour, we'll break it up. Go back to YouTube. Brian Thomas, wide receiver for our St. Pius Sartans. I should ask the kid what he thought about the Sartan nickname, because we sound like a bunch of wimps, and that's the PG version. I mean, I don't know why they can't be like, it's still a Catholic school, and they're called the Fighting Irish. I mean, the word fighting is in their title. I know that sounds incredibly stupid. I guess if it's Sartan in Italian, I guess you could go with the St. Pius X Gabagool, or, Goomba, or whatever you want to do. I'm very amped for Curtis Flakes. When I started doing this podcast after I lost the show on 610, I wanted to have San Juan Mendoza was supposed to be my first guest, and then things fell through. So much love there. I hope they can do it. This sounds like an incredibly hard test for facing Bloomfield, who is putting up 07 Patriots numbers. Maybe the St. Pius Sartan team can channel their inner 2007 New York Football Giants. All right, that's enough of me praising the Giants, who suck. And yeah, for those of you who know that I'm a Giants fan, yeah, I got all the Daniel Jones texts, and I wish I would have. I was in New Jersey last week. I wish I would have been out there for that game. But you put on WFAN, and all they're talking about is Aaron Rodgers. So thank God for him and overshadowing the Giants. Nick Nunez, Ed Nunez joining me on the show. Want to thank Affordable Solar, Affordable Service, Hydro Bar, Tim Baca Senior and Tim Baca Jr. over there, Dulce River Bakery and Coffee, and Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Appreciate Armando and Molly over there. I'm going to start here because rumors swirled around about Bronco Mendenhall taking a job, or excuse me, allegedly interviewing at Utah State. Utah State, and Eric talked about this when we had Dr. John Barnes on, about budgets in football programs around the Mountain West, and why it is where it is right now with those teams moving to the Pac-12. Utah State was the second or third. I think Boise was up there. San Jose State was at the bottom, and then I think it was UNM. But I wouldn't be shocked with them going to the Pac-12. I don't know if, I'm not here to knock on anybody's religion at all. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Not here nor there. I am curious, and if the new AD has anything to do with it. We haven't even mentioned that. Didn't do a show because I think the holiday week. But I think if it's not being talked about, the most significant story, other than maybe the men's basketball team, is Bronco maybe taking an interview with Utah State. Ed, I have to start with you first, and I'll give my 2 cents. I wouldn't be shocked. We had a show on here where we talked about JT Toppin leaving for Texas Tech, and people assumed it was just a lateral move. No, not in the Big 12, not with as good of a basketball conference that is. You have the number one team in that conference, a team, Kansas won the title 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, 2.5 years ago. I think it goes to show that maybe UNM football still doesn't have a lot to offer. And considering, and I've said this for the naysayer, this was a team that started 0-4. They are now 5-6. So that means they have won 5 of 7. The potential to win 6 of 8. You get to a bowl game, that's 7 of 9. That's pretty damn impressive. We knew what the first 4 games were. That's the end of my rant. Ed, I wanted your thoughts on Bronco Mendenhall allegedly taking a phone call from Utah State.
Nobody in the Albuquerque Journal has picked that up. I haven't seen a story yet. Now, that doesn't mean it's not true. I think I was shocked when I read that, but not shocked, if you know what I mean. When I read that, Utah State would seem like a logical landing place for Coach Mendenhall if he wanted to leave. Things are turned around here. As you mentioned, after an 0-4 start, I didn't even think about the possibility of him leaving. I thought, he'd stay here 2 or 3 years, build. He's building. He's already building something. If they go to a bowl game in his first season, they're predicted to win 1.5 games before the season started. So they've already surpassed that. Saturday's game is huge. I said that. You can't call it a momentum-changing victory, beating a ranked team and then lose to Hawaii, and you'd end your season at 5-7. So I haven't really seen – I've seen allegedly, supposedly, like Jim Rome says. I haven't seen anything to really say that happened. So am I saying it didn't, or it's impossible, or there's no way? I didn't say that. But I got to say that just thinking about that, loyalty, if that's the case, if he did leave, Katie barred the door, because where would they go from there? You'd have to start completely all over, and you're building some momentum, and then you can almost guarantee Dampier leaves, and if. So right now, all you've got is a couple of maybes, way in the back there. I haven't seen anything in the journal by Sean Ryder or anybody yet. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I'm going to take that attitude until I see it, until somebody says here in the local press that they heard it, or they asked Coach Mendenhall at the press conference about it. I'm going to take that attitude that it hasn't happened, or it didn't happen yet. Not saying that it couldn't happen, or but if he took an interview with Utah State after just being here for one season and they've kind of turned things around, what does that tell you? I don't know. It doesn't say, again, he can go wherever he wants, right? I mean, he's a free agent. I thought he was under contract. I don't know what the buyout is if he leaves. I don't even know if that's been discussed, but that's my opinion right now. I'm hoping that that's not true. I'd like him to stay here for a while.
I would imagine that Utah State might step in. This is just my thoughts, that Utah State might step in and maybe pay the buyout. Again, it was another, and the name's escaping me. It was under it's between him and or allegedly between him and a BYU assistant, but you're not going far from Provo to Logan. You're just heading north. I think probably another question is, how far would you get, set back? I'm going to bring in Rick Thompson, but Nick, I'll go to you after this. And Rick, thanks for joining us. Hope you're well. Happy Thanksgiving.
Richard.
You're on mute.
Sorry, can you hear me okay? I'm doing well. I'm listening to the conversation here, and reportedly what Sean Ryder had said on his show, the Albuquerque live show yesterday, is that only one possibly reliable media member, I think from one of the recruiting sites, 247, or one of those ones with a number in it, had said something of credibility. So at this time, it is all alleged rumors, but like you're saying, I can believe the interest by Bronco, but at the same time, I can't, because it's hard to believe somebody so focused on the task at hand would be entertaining that. But at the same time, Utah State is making the move to the Pac-12, and they have other things, on the horizon that New Mexico does not. So I don't really know what to believe at this point. We just have to wait and see, I guess, to see if these rumors are true.
Yeah. And Nick, I'm going to go to you. One thing I want to mention is I think BJ Rains of Bronco Nation News had reported, and it could have been other outlets in Boise, Idaho, that Bronco Mendenhall interviewed for the head coaching position at BSU, and they decided to go with Spencer Danielson Younger. I don't know if he was cheaper. Obviously, he's got them not only knocking on the door of the playoff, maybe a bye. I think they're the real deal. They pushed Oregon to the limit. I know that was a few months ago, but I think they're good. Nick, you be able to join us tonight. I want your thoughts on what you've heard about Bronco.
Yeah, same thing. I share the sentiment of my dad and Rick as far as it being just speculation at this point. I think I did put in our group text, I did find his comments in the press game conference on Monday in response to Jared Chester's question, which was, what do you think of the new athletic director, Fernando Lovo? And, he gave kind of a clipped response. It was a little under 2 minutes. I wouldn't say he gave a ringing endorsement, which doesn't mean he has to, right? But I think one thing to keep in mind is he's going to have to deal with a brand new athletic director who comes in for UNM. He had talked about his answer to Jared's question. He talked about how instrumental Dave Williams was at running the athletic department for UNM. and how close they were. You know, he thanked Dave Williams, saying Dave is the one who's been with us through our season, and Dave Williams was there in attendance as well. The vibe I got was that he was a little upset that Dave Williams was not hired as the athletic director. So, you know, he's going to have to start with the new athletic director regardless of whether he stays at UNM, whether he goes to Utah State. It's a brand new athletic director. That process may need to play out. You know, things may be run differently under the new athletic director, and he may not want to deal with that. That could absolutely be a factor. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but it could be a factor in him deciding to leave. So those are my thoughts at this point. I think it is speculation. I agree with Rick. I mean, he seems so locked in every single time he talks about the team. They were out recruiting during the bye week. They just announced 2 commits, I think, from the state of Utah. So I would find it hard to believe that he would interview, but again, could see it as well.
Fernando Lobo was announced as the new athletic director, and that's probably a good transition. I know we will talk about men's basketball, but Fernando Lobo becomes the 14th athletic director and the 4th Lobo AD in the last 32 years. Credit to golobos.com for that. I didn't really read into much of it. This is one of my busiest weeks at work, so I've been a little sidetracked. But he worked under Urban Meyer, the old head ball coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I find that fascinating. His was at the University of Houston. That's kind of ironic, but he comes from Texas, so I don't know if this is bleeding into the football, aspect of how you can change this. The first thing that pops into my mind is, Paul Krebs. He found Urban Meyer at Bowling Green. He found Alfred at UNM, and I think he thought he had struck gold with Mike Loxley, and clearly not. Ed, I'll go back to you. I don't know. I'm usually, probably way too opinionated, and I don't normally say shit on this to say it, but what are your thoughts on the hiring of Fernando Lobo? And he's a year younger, almost 2 years younger than Rick and I, which I should have applied for the job because every night would have been dollar beer night at the Lobos, and I'm sure that would have put people in the seats. I've said that for years, but Ed, I wanted your thoughts.
You mentioned that he's 36. I think he's also got a strong football background. That's what it said. So there's rumors were swirling around. When we heard things that so-and-so was a finalist or this or that, I always thought they were going to go outside and hire someone. I did. Jay Williams sat down with us about a month and a half ago, and I like Dave a lot. I think Dave did a great job. I know Ed Manzanares applied, so they had some internal applications right here at the University of New Mexico, but it was always my opinion that they were going to go outside and hire someone from the outside, and they did. So he is a young guy, man, but comes, like I said, with a strong football, working with Urban Meyer, and so I read that and I'm like, okay, they must. I think somebody mentioned this on one of our comments. They want to make sure if he's going to come in with a football background. Basketball, is basketball still. They draw a lot. They had a renovation, 2014. We've talked about this. That football stadium needs tremendous work, man. Tremendous work. Needs a lot. How many millions? I don't know. So if they can win and, maybe can establish a winning culture there, maybe he's the guy that takes football, I say that, knock on wood, to another level. And all sports. Eddie Nunez had mentioned, UNM won championships in a lot of sports. Golf, track and cross country. The guy that ran with one shoe this weekend, so UNM has done, Eddie did a good job, the GPA with the overall program. Eddie did, Eddie did a good job, I think. But I think bringing him in with that football background, and again, maybe men's soccer, does that ever come back? That's a question mark. I don't know. I doubt it. But there's everything's is in the air, I think. But I think with that football background, people have said it. That stadium needs work. It needs work yesterday. So hopefully, when he's here as AD, we see some work beginning there at University Stadium. Man, it needs it really bad in a lot of different ways.
You know what I thought was funny is we had those guys from the college football tour. Oh, I forgot his name. I feel really bad. He was an awesome guest. They loved the football stadium. They thought it was old. They thought it was kind of on top of each other. And when he was telling me that, I mean, every year title to your opinion, I just thought, man, you've never seen them lose as many times here as maybe I have, and other guys have. But I mean, if they have to you can't. I didn't really see the crowd for Washington State, but I know it looked bad. Nick, your thoughts on Fernando Lobo and the new AD. You've not trying to say I'm here for legal advice, but you've got the law background. You might be able to dissect that more than I.
Yeah. I don't have any legal opinions on the hire of Fernando Lobo, but yeah, I mean, I read a little bit about his background. I guess he comes to us from Texas. The athletic director at Texas, I believe, is a New Mexico native. So that was part of the connection there. I think I read somewhere that someone was selling Fernando Lobo. That was the athletic director at Texas told him, how passionate UNM is about certain sports. And yeah, young hire, right? I mean, I kind of have the same question mark. That's pretty young. And I mean, he does have the experience, I guess. But I'm excited. I think my thought is I'm just glad that it's not hanging over our heads anymore. Who's going to be the AD? They finally announced that it's going to be somebody. I'm excited, and hopefully he can continue the success that Eddie Nunez had as an AD.
Rick,
so that AD from Texas is Chris Del Conte. I believe he's from northern New Mexico, and the word is he put in the word for Lobo to, I believe, even the governor of the state, to that Lobo was the man for the job. So, Lobo started out as the equipment manager at Florida. So this is a guy that worked his way up, year after year to climb the ranks to this point. He didn't get handed any jobs. He's just coming from one of the most powerful athletic departments as one of the number 2 or 3 guys. I don't think the age is really a factor at this point. This guy has the experience. If you listen to his interview with JJ and Jeff Sembieta, he has the energy. He's going to be dedicated and hopefully willing to grow with this program. But let's not lie to ourselves about the tasks that are at hand here. Nevada just invested into a 10-year plan of I think over $25 million into their football program, as well as a new practice facility. And they're also getting a new basketball facility with one of the casinos there, GSR. When you compare New Mexico to some of the other facilities, I know it might have a charm or something to that effect. And there's word that there's big investors coming. Well, that's really the challenge for Lobo. Can he be a fundraiser? Can he get the money into this program that it needs before it falls behind even greater than it is? So I think it's the right man for the job. I think he's going to have the energy and the will to do it. It's just, is he going to have the buy-in, or is he going to make some changes within the athletic department to get his vision across?
I think that was well said, Rick. I efforted, I don't know why I said that. I'm not trying to take credit away from you guys. To had Fernando Lobo on Monday. I know he went on Jeff and JJ. I do not compete with Jeff and JJ. Jeff and JJ are friends. I've come up the ranks in the media in Albuquerque with JJ. I love JJ, and Jeff is very well accomplished, being with what he does, and he's an employee of ESPN. They have a partnership with UNM. Happy Thanksgiving, Frank. I hope you're well, and I hope you're listening, and I hope you enjoy Hawaii. I did ask Frank if we could have Fernando Lobo on the show. I'm hoping after the holiday we have efforted a basketball player or two. When we do the show on Mondays, it's kind of hard for them. I think they're at practice and they're doing study hall, so I'm not going to interrupt that. And then all the traveling. So we're hoping to have, and I might as well just ask to have Patino on, but did effort him. So hoping they come on. I heard some of the interview. I didn't hear all of it, but efforting to have him on. So we'll have him on and he can put up with my sense of humor. I'm just going to go to the comments real quick, and then I want to start a little bit basketball again. Kenny Thomas joining us in about 9 minutes. Nick, great hire by UNM. I don't mind these up-and-comers staying 4 or 5 years and going some bigger after. Eddie was solid. Somebody's name we've had on the show who is an incredible go-getter. I don't know him all that well. Met him several times. Ryan Berryman, who left for Washington. To a usual suspect, Eric Malton, strong football background, was involved with multi-million-dollar projects and stadium renovations at Texas, was involved at the UT with the UT transition to the SEC. I'm sure Oklahoma regrets that. On the morning drive show on Monday, the new AD raved in his interview about Bronco and how the future was so bright for UNM football. I mean, that's good to hear. I take everything with a grain of salt. Go ahead, Rick.
I think that's one thing, right? I mean, the leadership of both basketball and football right now, and the trajectory is strong. So he's not stepping into a total hellhole, maybe that it was looking like 12 months ago for Lobo football, right? Now things are looking like this. They just signed 3 commits, including a 3-star that was getting recruited by other schools. I believe Utah State was one of them, and they got him to come here to UNM. So hopefully that means Bronco isn't going to go back to Utah with all these kids from Utah. But I think, having those coaches in place, having that leadership will be at least a little bit of weight off of Lobo's shoulders as he tries to gain his footing here over the next few months and address the bigger issues at hand.
Rick, that's incredibly well said. Nick, solid analysis. Ricky had no ideas about UNLV and their upgrades, so there you go. Rick and Nick doing far more research than I am. I watched I was more intrigued by watching the love of my life, Saquon Barkley, completely torched the Rams on Sunday night. So I stayed at a buddy's house and watched that, and decided to watch the UNM Texas Southern game on the Mountain West Network. I am not the X's and O guy. I thought, again, a little bit sluggish at the beginning, and they just turned it on and kicked some major ass. Ed and Nick, you were there, and Rick, I believe you watched. Ed, I'll just throw it over to you. Your reaction from the Texas Southern game on Sunday night.
Slow starting the first half. I thought they were sluggish, 22-point favorites, and they played a little bit down to the competition. I thought they missed some easy shots. Dent was playmaking, but they missed again some easy looks. And then the second half, when the second half started, all of a sudden it's like something kicked in. They were 1 of 9 from 3-point land in the first half, and all of a sudden every guy that got it in the second half couldn't miss. So they turned it on the second half. True Washington, a really nice game. I thought he stole the ball again. They stole the ball a lot, and that's what they've been living on lately: steal and score in transition. So I thought True had a nice game. I thought a real nice thing to see. And Borovichinen didn't play till 9:41 left. With 9:41 left in the game, they let him. They sat him out, much like they did with Mustafa Amzil last year in New Mexico State, who didn't play at all. And all of a sudden, Amzil came on to be a real key contributor. But Borovichinen got in and scored 11 points in 9 minutes, and I think that was good for him. It gives him confidence that he just needed to see the ball go through the net. That helps a player steal the ball a little bit, get a rebound, things that we know he can do. He hadn't played much at Arizona. Coach Pitino said that in the paper, so I thought that was good to see. They played really well in the second half and turned it on. Cade Dotson came on and scored, and he played well. Nolan played well. It was a very, very good team win. Everybody that suited out and got in the game scored. One of those everybody gets in the box score the kind of game. So a good win and a good way to get ready for the Arizona State on Thursday.
99-68 win at the Pit on Sunday night, over Texas Southern. Texas Southern was predominantly a pretty good team in the SWAC. They've been in the tournament. I think the head coach there is legendary. I can see his face. I can't think of his name. They played them last year to open the season. They beat them pretty well. I don't know. True Washington, a lot has been made of his offense. 19 points, 8 of 13 from the field, 3 of 4 from the 3. I think Mustafa Amzil's probably been the most consistent player for this team. Tell me otherwise. Rick, your thoughts?
You know, he has been better on the boards this year, very strong on defense or hustling on defense, but still the worst rated defense by Evan Mia ratings. You know, he has made the most 3-pointers on the team, shooting too many for my liking. I know in this day and age, and Ed, we have argued about this, about quick 3-point shots, and I know you have to shoot 3-point shots in today's game, but one thing to me is, because it's been put in my head since I was 14 years old, is a long shot when there's no one down to rebound is the equivalent of a turnover when you're on a fast break, because it's going to be a long rebound and the other team's going to get it. So to me, shooting a 3-pointer when there's no one down low to rebound is the equivalent of a turnover. And sometimes Amzil is quick to pull the trigger when there's no one down low. And I know he has to shoot it, has made the most this year. Washington is shooting over 40%, which has been phenomenal. I haven't been impressed with any of the transfers so far. I know CJ Nelson came in and really had a good second half against St. John's, but he's shooting under 30% from 3. I don't think he's really popped the way I expected. His defense is solid, but none of the transfers, Atiki has been solid as well, have really, I think, exploded the way you see some of these other Mountain West transfers, like a Kobe Sanders at Nevada, Jalen Buchanan at Boise State. They're putting up big number points games, and we haven't really seen that out of any of the new players yet. Extremely impressed with Cade Dodson. He showed that he has a consistent stroke from outside. He doesn't hesitate, like I've said before. I think it was 3 of 4 last game from 3. Most of his shots have been from 3 because he's playing off of Dent most of the time at this point, and that's okay. But I think he also has to be a playmaker when he's the preliminary ball handler. So lots of good things so far. Lots of chemistry still to come, because I think these pieces are still feeling each other out. But one thing I do know for sure, everybody, is Nelly needs to touch the ball more than 4 or 5 times a game. I'm sure Kenny Thomas will agree with that when he comes on, because Nelly is, you know, if not the second best player, one of the best players on the team and one of the best scorers. He can shoot that 3-pointer, so I wouldn't worry about him shooting it. He will make one eventually. But I'm just ready for this team to kind of take that next step. And Arizona State is not going to be an easy task. It's probably the second or third most talented team they've played so far.
I'll add to that, Ryan. CJ Noland didn't shoot very, very well on Sunday against Texas Southern. One point I made was they do not shoot the 3-ball well at home. I looked at their stats. I kind of charted them up. In their 4 home games against Nichols, Corpus Christi, Grambling, and Texas Southern, we are shooting 34 of 104 from 3. That's 32%. We did shoot pretty well against Corpus Christi, 9 of 23, shot better against Grambling, 7 of 18. We shot 11 for 27 from 3 against Texas Southern on Sunday, but we started 2 for 11. So we shot 9 of 16 in the second half. And, you know, when they came out and shot 36 threes versus Nichols, we were all shocked. Like, is this team really going to shoot the 3-ball as much as they did? He's defended his team's, you know, shooting the 3-point shot. He says, we need to be able to shoot the 3-ball. This is the way that the game of basketball is being played. Amzil is not shooting very well at home. He's 5 for 24 in our 4 home games, 1 for 9 versus Nichols, 1 for 5 versus Corpus Christi, 1 for 4 versus Grambling, 2 for 6 versus Texas Southern. We mentioned CJ Noland. He's not shooting well either. And then to Rick's point that I had actually brought up in the press conference versus Grambling, I mean, Nelly only had 7 field goal attempts against Grambling. He had 4 field goal attempts against Texas Southern. Nelly scored in double figures in the first 4 games of the season. So he's getting less touches. You know, this team, to me, in terms of their style of play, is looking a lot like last year's team in terms of they turn the ball pressure up, they generate a lot of turnovers, they get a lot of points in transition, and that's how they like to play. I love that style of play. Everybody does. People score. It's fun to watch, but they are going to get slowed down. They're going to play against better teams that can handle that style of pressure, and they're going to have to play in the half court, and they're going to have to execute in the half court. You know, their half-court offense, to me, looks very similar to what it did last year. Again, this is just through the first 6 games. It's a lot of high pick and rolls with Donovan Dent. They do a lot of different things. Another thing they do is they'll go high post entry to Nelly and they'll hit Donnie on the back cut. They did that a couple times first 6 games of the season. But they've got to find a way, like Rick said, to consistently get the ball inside to Nelly. Amzil needs to shoot the 3-ball better. There's been some games where he's been okay. He shot well against St. John's, but other than that, just has not shot consistently. And they're going to need that in these next 2 games coming up.
Go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, you know what? Couple things. Both great analysis by Nick and Rick. I'll say this: Amzil, yeah, he needs the ball more, but the couple things they're starting to triple team, double team him on the catch. So he's going to have to be quick out of making decisions there. The other thing is, a couple of post entries have not been good. They've tried to enter from the top of the key. See the numbers, give him the ball. I've always said that. If you play inside, you see his numbers, feed the big man. So I think some of their post entries have lacked. I'm going to disagree with some of the transition threes there, Rick. I know you got your opinion. I've got mine. I think sometimes in college ball, the way it is today, I know you were taught that. All due respect to Damian Segura, who coached my son, and my son coached with him. Some of those are wide open. You bought Nolan in to shoot. Dent's finding him in transition, catch and shoot, make the dang shot. Bottom line. That's what we brought you in here for. Make the shot. That's just what I think. So I think everybody's got their great analysis, and those are some things that I wanted to add to that because there's some things that I've seen too. Amzil, I think he's sketchy. He's spotty. He's going to hit 2, miss 3, hit 1, make 1, miss 3. He's spotty, man. He's spotty, but sometimes they're important threes though. You're like, he makes the 3, and you're like, oh man, that one at St. John's had a hand right in his face, made it. There's others that he's wide open on and he misses. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. We've established that. But in this college game, the day and age, those transitions, you brought Nolan in to shoot the ball, man. That's what he does. Make the shots. That's what I think.
I think I've been mostly impressed with, you guys are all the basketball players. I've been impressed with Mustafa Amzil. I think he's played very well. I thought he took some really impressive shots on against St. John's. He seemed like the only guy to make some shots, and CJ Nolan. But I think it's funny that they were at the day they played UCLA, Santa Clara played Arizona State. And this is basically like the same tournament. Santa Clara and ASU are in this. So Santa Clara and ASU could potentially meet up and play each other on Friday. They will, if UNM wins or loses, they will play in the championship or consolation game against either USC or Santa Clara. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be hopefully back with former UNM men's basketball player and obviously Lobo legend Kenny Thomas. My name is Ryan Tamori, Ed Nunez, Rick Thompson, and Nick Nunez. We'll be right back after this.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
All right, we were efforting Kenny Thomas. Appreciate Nick joining us. I think we're going to wrap around some of the other Mountain West schools. Rick, you brought up a good point. I know you'd kind of send me your grades for UNM football player or UNM basketball players, but hold on just a second. Kenny's calling. I'm going to go to back to a commercial break. Unless, Rick, you want to talk about BC and Boise?
Yeah, I'll go for it.
Perfect. Go ahead.
So Boise losing today in the Cayman Classic Championship game to Boston College. Boise State, I believe, was 10 or 10.5 point favorites going into that game. And one of the things that I was questioning before going in the season for Boise, on top of a few other things, was a 3-point shooting. They ended up losing by a final score today to BC of, what is it here? Yesterday of 63-61. With not many opportunities for Boise this year in terms of non-conference wins, I think this one may come to hurt them when the tournament selection comes. They did have a win against Clemson, I think a week or maybe a little longer ago, but tonight shooting yesterday 4 of 17 from 3-point land, and losing Buzo Agbo, I think, was a bigger loss for Boise State than most were thinking going into the season. But I'll hand it back to Ryan here.
All right, welcoming to the show, probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Lobo men's basketball player of all time. Ed can argue that. He played for UNM from 95 to 99. He was a 2-time offensive, and I'm house sitting, and of course the dogs are going nuts now. He played for UNM from 95 to 99, was a second-team All-American, third-team All-American, and a 3-time All-First Team All-WAC. Got the Lobos to the tournament every year, and he was an amazing 71-3 in the pit during his 4 years there. His name is Mr. Kenny Thomas. Kenny, happy Thanksgiving. How are you doing?
Man, I'm great. I appreciate that. When my man Ed reaches out, I try and make myself available. He's always been a great supporter. He calls in, he talks to me about my post-game show, which is on KKOB 96.3 after about 20 minutes after every post-game show with Robert and Hunter on my call-in show. So he's been very supportive. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate that. And then I can make a case for myself. I don't need Ed to make the case for me.
Well, I mean, I can make a case for you. I mean, you'd punch me in the face. I'd always say, "Oh, Kendall Williams was pretty good," but I watched you, and you. I mean,
he was.
Yeah, he was good. I mean, I still think, I don't know, when I think of UNM basketball because of my age, Kenny, I'll be honest, I think of you. And I'm sorry, I'm house sitting, and then the dog started barking right as I introduced you, and I felt like an idiot. So I forgot to mention Lobos Live. I'm just gonna we're all gonna wrap around. My buddy Rick Thompson's here joining us, and then Ed. I'm just gonna start with this question because it hasn't been on our show. I just want your general thoughts on this Lobo team thus far.
Hey, what's up, fellas? Thanks for having me. I feel like this team is very interesting. Obviously, they're very heavy in the backcourt with Dant and True coming back, and it's kind of the same feel. Kind of the same feel. You notice I said the word kind of. I got to be very specific. It's kind of like House being around and Mashburn being a House. I really like the structure of how Patino's coming in and he's implementing defense first. And obviously, this Lobo team isn't the greatest from behind the perimeter, but obviously the other night, the game they had scoring 99 points, and it's their second game almost scoring 100 points in the game. I've been waiting for a breakout game like they just had. I've been waiting. I kind of expected it to happen in the beginning of the season, but in the first few games, I felt like they came out and they're setting the tone, especially with their schedule. And the fact they got about 4 or 5 big games early, I really love that. Even the fact that they have to go on the road, I still love it.
Ed, Rick, you have any questions for Kenny?
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah,
come on, man. I'm here because of you. You better throw these questions.
Oh no, you know I'm coming to you, man. Yeah, you know that.
Kenny, this is Ricky Thompson. I'm going to steal Ed's thunder first. I am a caller into your show. I haven't been on this year. let me just say first, thank you for all the memories growing up. It's of you, Clayton Shields, Royce Olney, Spider Smith. That's what my childhood is filled with. And on top of you going to the league, coming back for exhibition games, I would stand outside on the chain link fence, try to get your autograph on
Oh,
the
wow.
when you came back. Followed you all around the league to the Kings and the Sixers. So we appreciate, everything you did beyond the Lobos and representing New Mexico. Going on now, we know your work you did with the Kings, and now selling your own wine. So we're just very proud of you. And being the greatest Lobo big man of all time, my question is, how can Nelly demand the ball more? But if he's not getting the ball from his teammates, how can he score without the ball, much like you did in the day? And then filling out your role in the NBA is, never the leading scorer. You always found a way to impact the game. Can you just talk about how you impact the game when you're not getting the ball?
I appreciate that, man. Let me address my fellow teammates, Charles, Royce, and all those guys. Clayton, I'm gonna have, and even David Gibson. I'm gonna have some of those guys on my post-game show. Those guys, it wasn't just me. Those guys helped me create the dynasty that we created during the late '90s. But it was an amazing experience. When I think of Nelly, I think of last year from the standpoint of I felt like he needed to get stronger down low. He came in, I felt like his lower body looked a lot stronger. Obviously, he had some complications coming in as late as he did with that visa stuff with his first year, but I feel like Nelly has came out, not in the first couple games, but he's come out after those first couple games, and I feel like he's making himself known. He's running the floor. You can tell if you really notice, he's actually searching for the ball, and they're actually looking for him. If guys are playing him in the front, he's actually spinning and letting them play in the front, and they're swinging the ball, and I feel like they're giving him opportunities. Um, I'm not trying to be arrogant or anything, but when I did what I did, like you addressed, Ryan, it was a matter of dedication and commitment. I felt like I needed to get better in every aspect of the game because if I didn't play well in college, it wasn't going to set the tone to how we kind of played. And Clayton Shields and Royce Only and those guys made it a point to let me know, Kenny, hey, we're feeding off of you. Like, however you play, this is how we're going to play. There were several times where Clayton Shields, I can remember a fact in BYU, Clayton at halftime, he's like, what the hell are you doing? Like, we feed off of you. I'm not saying that this isn't happening in the Lobo locker room, but I feel like somebody needs to take the initiative and hold guys accountable outside of Coach Pitino. But I feel like the fact that the Lobos are able to have 2 top 25 games before even game 10, I think that's great. I think another aspect, I just feel like Nelly just needs to continue to get better because if there's no inside presence, I feel like it's going to be hard because if you notice against St. John's, they went to a 1-3-1. And people are starting to go 2-3 zones and 3-2 zones because they know that the Lobos are very good at coming downhill. Obviously, with Donovan Dent coming downhill, they're very well coached when it comes to that. But obviously, teams are wanting them to play out on the perimeter. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Lobos still try to adjust to the zone because I feel like teams are going to play a zone on them a lot more. Don't you think so, Ed?
Kenny, all those are great points, and I want to make a couple of points. When you played here, that drop step going back to when you won a state championship with Albuquerque High, you refed a couple of your games. Nasty, unstoppable, created space, and then when they double teamed you, Kevin Henry never got as many open looks when you left. You were a willing passer out of the double team. You saw the double team coming, boom, kicked out to your shooters. You knew where they were. And Kenny, by the way, thanks so much for joining us on short notice, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Kenny, I think one of the things you make some great points, especially about the leadership part, because Clayton, who I've got to be friends with, telling you, hey, man, you need to do this, right? We need you. And Coach Bliss knew that. The things go through Kenny inside out. And now so much it's outside in. The low post game is not what it used to be. when you played, and you know, you dominated down there. Man, you got a big contract in the NBA, and you deserved it. You worked hard at it. The thing that I'm going to ask you about, Kenny, is the leadership part is very interesting to me, what you said about that. Now, Nelly, all due respect to him, he doesn't have your post game. And my son made a point about it. His post game isn't what I would call fluid. It's effective. Drop steps, jump hook, doesn't turn and face. I'm not saying he's not good. You just had more natural ability in the post than he did. And Nelly's good. Don't get me wrong. But I think the part about the leadership part, to me, I think is very interesting, because a lot of transfers together. Amzil's back from last year. Dent's back. They've got some guys back, but I don't know if there's that guy that you mentioned that, Clayton came to you. Royce was a dog, right? Royce was that dog.
Yeah.
He's going to come up to you and tell you, man, and you saw the guy sacrifice his body. We saw what he did. I don't know if New Mexico has that yet. Now, a good early season test, and I think your point to a zone, a 1-3-1, the New Mexico is going to see more of that. I think that's a great point there, Kenny. I really do.
Yeah, because they see the perimeter guys. Like, it's not that the Lobos can't shoot it, but they're streaky, right? And you have to earn that respect from behind the perimeter. Thank you for all your nice, kind comments, man. If the Lobos reached out to me and asked me to help, I would go help. I feel like Nelly, not the last game when they just won it was 99, they won by like 30-something points, but the game before, it was at home. I saw Nelly in the post in front of the ramp. He was waiting for guys to clear out. He was being patient. It was a dribble. I think it was a dribble move baseline or vice versa, and then it ended up being like a jump patient hook. Whenever I see Nelly and I see a Tiki, I'm like, you guys just be patient. But at the same time, if you look and you know basketball, the guards got to create spacing and create not create, but allow the bigs to be able to work. Obviously, people are going to say, hey, Kenny's a big man. But in my mind, I always wanted to play on the perimeter. But at the same time, those weren't the cards that I was dealt because I was a bigger body. But I feel like Nelly, they have to start inside and work outside. That's the only way that I feel like the backcourt for UNM is going to be able to be successful and Dent's going to be able to do what he does.
Rick, do you have any other questions?
No, I do. I think just a couple more.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on,
Kenny,
man. We only been on for 20 minutes. We could probably talk forever, but I got
oh God, you know what? When you're on, and I think about what the work you did here, man. Even when I saw you play at Albuquerque High, you guys, under the legendary Jim Holzman, Coach Holzman. Gosh, Kenny, still kicking it, man. It's kicking it strong still at 94 years old, man. Still has the mind of a steel trap. But Kenny, go ahead. Did you want to say something? You still there, Kenny?
Looks like Kenny and Ryan cut out there, Ed.
They both disappeared, man. We got to keep this going.
But
Rick,
we'll continue the conversation there. I think for me, the question mark for the Lobos, that they're defensively going to be one of the best teams in the conference. And if you look at the ratings at Evan Mia or Ken Palm, you can see that defensively they have 4 or 5 guys that are rated the best in the conference. The question really is, the half-court offense to me, how is it going to flow? It seems like they're running this dribble handoff action, and I'll get Kenny back in the conversation here. But Kenny, do you think can you hear us, Kenny?
Kenny, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Sir.
Okay. I'm like, I was here the whole time. I heard you guys.
Well, one thing we're wondering, Kenny, on offense. One of the questions, at least for myself, has been the half-court offense at times has kind of stalled out in the first 10 minutes of the last 2 games, where they're running this dribble handoff action and they're trying to get the back door, and it seems like they haven't really been running the pick and roll as much with Nelly. Do you see anything that could be improved in the half-court offense? Obviously, the defense is solid. The transition offense is always going to be there. But when it gets down late in the game, how are they going to score in the half-court?
Man, I feel like you've been listening to my show or you've been getting scoops from Ed, because I say the same thing you just said because I feel like they should run more pick and rolls, and I do feel like they get very stagnant in the half court. And then I've always said basketball is against it. I mean, excuse me. I would always say basketball is always a process of elimination. If you have, if you're in a pick and roll, the defender that's guarding the big man has to guard the ball. So that means there's only like 2 or 3 other guys that are back there that can guard. So I love pick and roll. Being able to play with Allen Iverson and Mike Bibby, those guys would always say, "Hey, come set a pick for me in transition." It doesn't matter, even if it looks like it's bad, just come set a pick and roll because I feel like it's going to open up a lot of opportunities, especially for Dent. If I was Nelly, I would go pick and roll so much to where Dent would be buying me so many meals every day. It would be insane, but that's just me. Um, and then Atiki, I feel like he's very athletic, but I don't, from what Patino's saying, I don't feel like he's going to get a lot of minutes. And they do get a little stagnant and and run handoffs. So this is where I always say whenever I see the game, I just feel like they should just go pick and roll and see what happens.
You know, a couple of things, Kenny. Okay, so you know when you played here, we know they could throw it in there, and you're going to score, you're going to kick it back out. So when Udeze was here, he overpowered people. I wouldn't say he had a low post game, but he was strong enough to just overpower people. Last year, JT Toppin, you know, Nelly got a lot of touches because Nelly, you know, they're guarding Toppin a lot too. So I don't know that you know, Tiki has the post game. He's raw. He's
Yeah.
athletic. He's definitely an improvement over Sebastian Forsling off the bench. Nothing against Forsling. He's a willing player, but Atiki can, you know, as a rim runner, he can block some shots, and you can throw him a lob here and there. He's going to score. But I got to ask you Sunday, Kenny, when we saw Philip Borovichinin, who didn't play until 9:41 left in the game, he goes in there and gets 11 points, and sometimes players just need that confidence to see the ball go through the basket. You know, you got some good minutes. It was productive. Hadn't been productive in the last couple of games. How important was that for Borovichinin on Sunday?
See, when it comes to Philip, I feel like they inserted him into the starting lineup because he's 6'8", right? Because you have Dent that's smaller, and then you have True that's smaller. And then, as you know, the backcourt's always been identified as being small, even from last year. So I feel like inserting him, he's 6'7", 6'8". It's a big body at the three position to where it was going to help. One with probably off like rebounding, and then two, I think it was going to help the defense. But he's not the type of person, from what I'm seeing, to where he's a starter to where he's going to assert himself to being aggressive on the offensive end. You notice when he came in those last 9, 10 minutes, there was no pressure. He was having fun. He went like 5 for 6 and he had 11 points. But then when you insert a CJ Nolan into the starting lineups, I don't always agree with how aggressive he is, but the fact that Patino needs points outside of Dent, and especially if True isn't going, where are those points going to come from? So I feel like that backcourt is going to be huge when it comes to CJ, True, and Dent. Obviously, we know Dent should be that guy, but it's going to come down to who's going to be that X factor between CJ and True, I think, because I feel like they're still guard heavy, and and when you talk about a Tiki, I feel like he's a guy that can come in and be athletic. It's not about him trying to score in the paint or anything. I like his athleticism because if you really think about it, the Lobos are not very good when it comes to second chance points. Do their guards in their backcourt really crack back as they should? I don't think they should. I don't think they do as much as they should.
Kenny, I'm going to ask this question because you played in the NBA and you played in the Garden probably frequently, especially being with the 76ers. And you're talking to a Knicks fan. So what was your experience like playing in the Garden, and how cool do you think it was for, you know, this team? Obviously, I know it was over a week ago, but for this UNM team to go play that game in the Garden?
I think it's a great point because I think that's a great question because once again, I think I said this earlier. I just like the fact that the Lobos are adding teams to their schedule that bring value. And when I say bring value, it's going to help them when it comes down to March Madness and how their schedule is formed. Being able to go into a hostile environment in New York and you're basically playing against a home team in St. John's. I mean, that's tough. Going into the Garden when I played with the Sixers or the Rockets, it was tough. And it's just, but at the same time, when the lights came on and playing in front of the stars and you're being able to put on a performance, I showed up. But I feel like when the Lobos went through that experience, excuse me, with St. John's, I feel like it was a very physical game. I felt like it was close, but it came down to the perimeter play and making great decisions. But yeah, and just to let you know, there was a guy with the thick New York accent that called into the my post game show after that game. So he was a big New Yorker. He was a big Lobo fan. He was raised um, in Albuquerque and everything. But I feel like that St. John's game was one of those games that was needed.
I appreciate that answer. Ed, Nick.
Sorry about that, you guys.
No, good. Ed or Rick, do you have anything left for Kenny Thomas?
You know, Kenny, a win against UCLA, a game against St. John's. They're going to be playing Arizona State tomorrow night and VCU later on down the way in a couple of weeks. How important it was, was this early season schedule? How important will it be for New Mexico down the way?
I don't know if obviously New Mexico being able to play UNM ranked 20. I mean, excuse me, being able to play UCLA ranked 22, and then here you are coming right back and playing St. John's ranked 22. Just those two experiences are alone. One, it's great for the Lobos, and two, it's great for the Mountain West Conference because I feel like it's an underserved conference. But being able to go and have an opportunity to play against the Arizona State team tomorrow is going to be huge, and then they get another opportunity on Friday to be able to play against USC or St. Mary's. I mean, obviously they played against St. Mary's the last couple of years, and they've done good. But I just like the fact that the Lobos are willing to go on the road rather than trying to get them to come to the pit. Obviously, we want them in the pit, but I just feel like it's going to help them when it comes to the schedule and trying to figure out which teams are quad 1 or 2 or 3 and trying to figure out where the Lobos are going to go when it comes to March Madness. Yes, I said March Madness early, and the way Boise State is playing, I could see the Lobos even winning the Mountain West Conference if they play like they've been playing the last couple games, even against St. John's. I feel like it was a great game. St. John's was just the bully.
He is former UNM men's basketball player, legend, All-American. And again, I always forget that stat. Oh, Rick, do you have anything else? Sorry.
My
bad.
I can't believe all the stats you guys dropped, man, but I appreciate it.
Yep.
Kenny,
Here's Rick. I'm sorry.
Kenny, I got one last one for you because I wasn't aware of this. What you played among a cast of characters when you were a rookie, including Charles Barkley, which I didn't know was his last season on that Rockets team. Stevie Franchise, Katino Mobley, Moochie Norris, Hakeem Olajuwon, Walt Williams. Can you tell us a little bit about that team and playing with Sir Charles and the Dream? Because people forget that you played with him.
When I got drafted, it's kind of crazy because if you think about it, back in the day, Charles Barkley used to come here and play preseason games in the pit. Back when I was in college, and we used to sneak in and watch him. And then next thing you know, I get drafted by the Rockets, and then I'm able to play with Charles Barkley. I didn't see him until like a few days after training camp. I was able to be around him for maybe about 15, 20 games. I got an opportunity to see him flip Shaq to where he picked him up and threw him on the ground. Very interesting moment. And then next thing you know, Charles Barkley tore his knee up, and I never saw him again. And then I've seen him throughout my career at events and different things. But when me and Steve Francis being able to be drafted, Steve Francis was co-rookie of the year with Elton Brand that year. I think he went 1 and Elton went 2. I was a 22nd pick that year, and man, being able to just be in the NBA, and I was Walt Williams, who was a legend, and then you got to keep in mind, Scottie Pippen was
I don't know if Kenny's off again, Rick. I don't know what happened. Oh, there's Ryan.
Unmute yourself, Ryan.
Sorry about that.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
I'm still here. No, it's all good. And then you had guys like Calvin Cato. It was like a 7-man trade with Scottie Pippen. And then, being able to play against Michael Jordan when he owned the Wizards and playing with Allen Iverson, who actually came to Albuquerque for one of my basketball camps back in the day. But, man, I had a great career and I'm blessed. And nice thing about it is I'm able to do a lot of different things in the community. I actually have a basketball tournament coming up December 27th here in Albuquerque. And once again, my radio show on KKOB 96.3 after 20 minutes after every Lobo game, you can call in at 505-243-3333. And then I have my sports animal segment with Jeff Symbieta on Tuesdays and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 9:30. We talk sports. We talk about all the other things that I have going on as well.
Appreciate that, Kenny.
We're locked in, Kenny. We know everything you got going on. I think Ed has one last question.
Kenny, you were out there at Albertsons, I believe, today, man. Tell us a little bit about Kenny Thomas wine.
Oh, thanks for asking that. So Kenny Thomas Legacy Wines, it's called Legacy because I see myself doing many other things outside of basketball, helping in the community, partnerships with government entities. I had an appearance at Albertsons off of Tramway and Academy today. David Inman is an amazing GM at that Albertsons. It's probably going to be one of the ones that I do appearances at usually on a regular basis, not usually, on a regular basis. And it was good. People came out and I sold like 5 cases of my wine just being there for like 2 hours. So it was a good experience and looking at growing it. And my wines are in the pit too. So if you're up there on the suite level, go ask them for Kenny Thomas Legacy Wines.
And
Building and growing.
Kenny, I'm out here in the Bay Area. Does the wine get sold out in California yet? Can we look for that?
So that's a great question. My grapes are actually from San Martin, San Jose area. I'm in Rayleigh's. So I'm in 102 stores in Rayleigh's, all their brands, their 3 other brands, 102 stores in California and Nevada. So I'm in Rayleigh's. So you can go in there and ask them for Kenny Thomas Legacy.
Thank you.
All right. I will let him go. Former UNM men's basketball player. Great. Played in the NBA. Rick, that was a good question about all the cast of characters he played with. I forget this Kenny all the time, man. 71-3 in the pit, 4 straight years in the NCAA tournament. Before the night before Thanksgiving, thank you for joining us here on the Pit Press Live. This is Kenny Thomas. Kenny, thank you so much.
Man, I appreciate that. Hey, one more stat. I was ranked in the top 25 all 4 years too, as well.
I forgot about that. Next time you come on, I'll make note of that. You are very much like Dontrell Moore, man. He remembers every stat, so I love it. Kenny Thomas, hey, happy Thanksgiving.
No, I do not. I have too many. No, I do not. But Dontrell, that's my boy.
No, Dontrell's the best. Kenny, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks. Happy Thanksgiving. Appreciate you, Ed. Talk to you soon.
Bet, brother. Thanks, man.
That was Lobo legend Kenny Thomas. Appreciate him coming on the show. Rick, I have to say, man, that question about all the cast of characters, well done, sir. I thought that was a really good question. I always forget, and I know I just said this and I just told him, 71-3 in the pit, man. That's really impressive. That's just, I don't know if you can ever emulate that. And they were top 25 every single year. That's really impressive. Ed, I got to give you a shout out. I know it's Thanksgiving, but I'm thankful for all the guests you get. I appreciate that.
Well, you know what, guys? This is funny. We're going to laugh about this together. So we tried Hunter Green, and Hunter is having dinner with his stepson, former Valley great Josh Jenkins. Josh Jenkins was a heck of a player back in the day here in Albuquerque. Tried him. Tried Mike Winters. Tried George Scott, and finally, had got Kenny to come on. So we lucked out, man. Because Kenny was a great guest, and Rick, a lot of those guys you mentioned, man, Walt Williams, the Wizard. I remember Kelvin Cato, I'm a huge NBA guy, so I remember all those guys. And when he was here, when Kenny was here, that drop step was nasty. You just couldn't stop it. And then he had that big behind, right? So he created space. You couldn't stop him without fouling him, in good hands. And then if you double teamed him, he found his shooters, man. He did. He was, I thought, a great player. And, we mentioned who's the greatest, Cooper, Harge, Daniels, Mel Daniels, Danny Granger. You can go on and on about great Charles Spider Smith, Phil Smith, Greg Brown, the late Greg Brown. There's so many great players here. Danny, I mentioned Granger that have played here, but he's definitely in the top three. Luke Longley, don't want to forget about him. There's been some great Lobo players, but watching him and Rick, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that you were chain link fence watching him. When I was 15, I'd be at the pit and Michael Cooper would come up and he had like an old Volkswagen, and Marvin Johnson would have a two-piece suit on or three-piece, and Cooper was dressed real, in sweats, and Marvin, so we were looking at those players the way you were, Kenny Thomas back in the day. Lobos are kings in this town, man. They always have been. So your memory there brought back memories of me being outside the pit and looking at Lobo stars of yesteryear, man. So I'm glad Kenny was very gracious to come on, and I'm glad he got to hype up his show, Lobos Live with Brandon Ortega. I listen a lot. And Rick, I know you called in a couple times, and that guy with the New York accent, I heard that guy on the show when I listened a couple weeks ago. So I'm glad he was able to come on, man. He was a great guest.
Rick, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's debatable the greatest career of any Lobo anymore. I think he proved that, especially with the stats you just read off, especially with the NBA career and longevity he had. People forget about the numbers he also put up in the NBA. So, just his impact being from Albuquerque, I think people also forget. He's a leader in a lot of stats, but he was also suspended, I believe, as a freshman for some type of lawsuit, or you guys can remind me, but he missed a set of games at the beginning of his career, if I'm not mistaken, as well for some reason.
I don't remember that.
I don't think we'll ever see someone play 4 years with the type of success that he had again in this landscape. So just cool to really talk to him and just relive some of those memories I had of him.
I don't know. I thought that was a good get on the eve before Thanksgiving. So I really appreciate that, Ed. We're going to talk a little bit NMSU Aggies, then maybe we can wrap up the show. I know it's getting late. Maybe wrap up the show talking a little bit more UNM men's basketball. I'm going to bring in from the Las Cruces Sun News. I appreciate his time during the entire season, Mr. Nick Coppola. Hey, big win by Boomer Sooner there.
Yeah, I just was able to watch about maybe the second half of the game after I finished up covering the New Mexico State Middle Tennessee game, and to say it was unexpected was definitely an understatement. But I'm glad it happened. That was a really big win. I'm really proud of the team for that.
Well, it definitely threw a monkey wrench in things, and that's what I want. So don't tell me you'd put in 8-3, 9-3. Alabama team over 11-1 Indiana. I don't care who's Indiana's played. Hey, New Mexico State. My betting darling got me good on Saturday. They were underdogs at Middle Tennessee State in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, just southeast of Nashville. They started out the game 10-0. I mean, they looked like the team of last year. Nick, how would you break down that game?
Yeah, it was probably the best game they played all season. They finally found a balanced passing offense. It felt like the first time they had a balanced passing offense the entire season, even though it was technically just the third time They had more passing yards than they did rushing yards, but they really found that. They had Parker Ward got the start. That decision was made very late in the week by Tony Sanchez. They made that decision after Thursday's practice, the day before they traveled. So it was very late when they made it, but he did really good. He threw for 221 yards, which I think is a season high for him. Bryan Nunez came in and threw 2 of those touchdowns, or the 2 passing touchdowns that New Mexico State had. Seth McGowan had a really good day. I believe he had over 170 total yards through rushing and receiving. He was their leading rusher and leading receiver. So, another really good game from him. They played really good on defense too. They got 2 takeaways, this is the 3rd consecutive game in which they ended up with 2 interceptions. One of them was a pick 6 on the very first drive of the game. So that was a big head jump start for them. And a lot of firsts too. This was the first time they had a 2-score lead at any point since playing Liberty all the way back on the 7th of September. So this was a really good game for New Mexico State. They season is going to end this coming Saturday, but I'm sure they're thrilled to have a performance like that in this part of the season.
I'm looking at these stats, and you mentioned the quarterback play. 12 of 16 for Parker Awad. Brandon Nunez went 2 or 2. If my journalism math adds that up correctly, it's 14 of 18. That's impressive. Brandon Nunez threw two touchdown passes on those two plays. And Parker Awad threw for 221 yards. Defensively, I sorry if you mentioned it, but defensively, a pick 6 sets the tone. How would you rate the defense? And on top of that, if you've talked to Tony Sanchez this week, I had asked you last week, how important would 2 wins be to finish this season? How important was the defense, and then how was Tony Sanchez this week?
Yeah, they have really talked about it, and they went into the Middle Tennessee game talking about how they really want to finish out with 2 wins in a row, and that they can beat Middle Tennessee, and if they can beat UTEP this Saturday, that they would really go into the offseason and go into 2025 with a really good foundation, and they'll feel really good about where they're at because they finished the season so strong. And they talked about it again on Monday to preview UTEP. Not only is it a rivalry game, that's a game they obviously will want to win regardless of what their record is. But they want to have that strong foundation going into next year, even though a 4-8 finish would still be below their preseason expectations. They feel like they need that, and they would still go into the offseason feeling pretty good about themselves. And that Middle Tennessee game when you have a lot of moments like that pick 6, Seth McGowan had a lot of big moments. They had a lot of deep passes that were explosive plays as well, which they've been really struggling to get this season. So not only was it a big win for them, they just had a lot of moments that they can look back on as some of the highlights of their season. And so they, Middle Tennessee was a very pass-heavy team. They got 2 interceptions off Middle Tennessee's passing offense. That was really good for them. They seem really excited about that win and feel like they can do the same against UTEP.
UTEP and NMSU, I know, big rivalry. This is your first year out there. I'll start with this question. Do you feel that this is a bigger rival to UNM or UTEP for New Mexico State?
Some of the players definitely thought that. We got to talk to Cale Edwards and Kenan Yar, who both put it on par with UTEP and or both put it on par with UNM, and made an argument that it's a bigger rivalry than New Mexico State's and UTEP, and obviously that's up for interpretation. I don't really have an opinion on that, but they really it's a different kind of rivalry. It's more of a proximity rivalry than just 2 schools in the state that happen to be there kind of rivalry. But proximity rivalries are always good ones, and so they're playing it on rivalry week, which they in the past have usually not gone to play. UNM is always going to be played in September or in non-conference play, and UTEP was that way before, where it was a non-conference play, but now they get to play it at the end of the season. All the hype is there, rivalry. They really feel like they're a part of college football with all these other rivalry games going on. And so they really want to continue it as well, because obviously UTEP is leaving for the Mountain West after 2025, and obviously right now there's no game schedule between the two after 2025 and in 2026 and beyond. I think that will happen, but right now it hasn't happened, and so they expressed their wish that the rivalry would continue, and they feel like it's good for both communities, but also they're at least the players speaking, Kale said he's happy to join in the hatred of UTEP, which I thought was pretty funny. From not from like I guess I don't know what I'm like. I didn't mean that in like a demeaning tone. I just thought like, oh my gosh,
No, we got you.
Yeah, that was a pretty funny thing he said. And Kenyon Yara and Kenyon Yara kind of feels the same way as well. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to cover. The New Mexico State rivalry was pretty fun to do, and obviously you love covering these rivalries, and so I'm excited for it, and they are excited for it as well.
How big is it? And I asked you this last week. The fact that if they can finish the season 4-8 and get 2 wins and not be 2-10. UTEP is 2-9, and they looked like one of the worst teams in the country. And the head coach is escaping me down to UTEP, but he's a super energetic guy. I guess he would be almost comparable to Sundance Wicks at Wyoming. Given the context of what has happened this year, how important maybe is this game that it's in Las Cruces?
Yeah, it's very important, especially since, it's been a while since the game was in Las Cruces. You had the game in 2022 and 2023. Both of those were in El Paso because Conference USA chose to schedule the game last year in El Paso, even though the 2022 one was in El Paso. So it's been 3 years since the game was in Las Cruces, and so they're very excited for it. I don't think it's going to be a sold out crowd, but definitely you'll see that increase from the fans. Especially considering El Paso is right down the street. So there's definitely going to be increased interest in it. And yeah, they play significantly better at home than they have on the road this season. And I know they won on the road last week, but that was the first time they had won on the road all season, and the first time they didn't lose by like 20 or more points on the road either. All their home games have been either wins or very close losses. The one to UNM was a very, very close loss. Their last game against Western Kentucky, or the last home game against Western Kentucky, was a pretty close loss. So yeah, they feel really good about playing at home. That's where they play their best football, and they're favored this Saturday for just the second time all season. And so this is a game that not only they can win, but they expect to win. And, they obviously feel like they're the better team, and, they're going to get them at home. And so they have a lot of really good things to feel about going into Saturday.
My God, they're 2.5 3-point favorites. I didn't know that. Thank you for mentioning that, Nick. I got to ride the UNM alumni has to ride my Aggies when it comes to betting. I just wanted to check it. Rick, do you have anything for Nick?
I was going to kind of change gears to basketball question
right
here. So, Nick, first of all, thank you for joining us all football season, and I appreciate your hater comment. I like to think of myself as one of the biggest haters this side of the Mississippi. And that being said, one of the things I hate right now is this Pac-10, Pac-12 nonsense. But today I saw a rumor that New Mexico State is actually being rumored to be joining the Pac-12 or Pac-10. Have you seen any news about that, sir?
I have not. So that news comes as a big surprise to me. I didn't even know the Mountain West was looking at them, and let alone the Pac-12, or I didn't think that they would get into the Mountain West. So it kind of surprised me if that's true. Then that's really, really interesting, because obviously there would be a huge step up, like way more than a Mountain West move would be for them, considering the Pac-12 still kind of has that name recognition, that I guess that power conference identity, even though they might not be that anymore. They still got that name attached to them. So yeah, that would be huge. I'd have to look into that, because that's the first time I've been made aware of it. But
it was just a rumor on the rumor mill of Twitter. But another podcast about Mountain West stuff, the Big Mountain, I saw someone commented and say that New Mexico State might have got some interest, but I'll dig into that, and I know you will too. But one thing I was wondering about New Mexico State basketball, if you were able to watch the game against UNLV, and if any players on UNLV really stood out to you besides DJ Thomas, and then for the Aggies, who's really shown out for the Aggies so far this year?
Yeah, there's been a few for New Mexico State that I've really liked. I got to watch the second half of it, because the basketball game against UNLV started about 10-15 minutes after the football game ended, and I was still writing stuff about football. But I got to catch the second half of it when and it was a good game with a good finish. But for UNLV, obviously you have Devin Thomas. I believe that's the name you said. Jalen Hill was another guy. That's a former U player. I didn't know he ended up at at UNLV, but it seems like he's doing pretty good there. For New Mexico State, Zoddy Jackson, he didn't really have the best game against UNLV, but that's someone who one of their many transfers. So he came from West Georgia at the D2 level, and he stepped in the starting lineup instantly. He's been one of their best players. Last time I checked, he leads the Aggies in points per game. That could have changed in these last 2 games, but he's still having a really, really good season. Obviously, you got to look at Christian Cook, who's probably going to be one of the best guards in Conference USA this year. Coming off the bench for them, they have a true freshman guard named Gabe Pickens. He was a 3-star recruit out of Phoenix. He's not starting yet, but he could get there one day. He's been really good. He came off the bench against UNLV and he was their leading scorer with 14 points. A lot of those came in the first half, but he was still really, really impressive for them. So I expect him to be in that rotation going forward. And Peter Filipovich, I think that's how you say it. I'm going to struggle with that literally all season. He's another one of their transfers. He was hurt to start the season against New Mexico Highlands, but he's come back and has also played really well. He came off the bench to score 12 against UNLV, and he came off the bench against Dayton to score in double figures as well. So he's going to be a big part of their bench going forward. And it'll be interesting to see how Carl Cherenfant goes. He didn't play that much at Memphis. I believe he only averaged about a minute per game, maybe 2. So he's still kind of a freshman in a lot of different ways, but he's inserted himself in the starting lineup in recent games. And, he's got a lot of potential. When 24/7, when he transferred to New Mexico State, they wrote a pretty raving review about how good he could be, and Jason Hoon and the coaching staff over there believe in that too. And so it'll be really interesting to see what he does going forward. Not that he's particularly maybe stood out yet, but he can in the future, and that's what I'm interested to see if he lives up to that potential and makes it worthwhile.
Anything else, Rick?
That's all I got. Thanks, Nick.
Of course.
One last question, and Nick, I got to give you a shout out. Thanks for joining us in this holiday with Thanksgiving. Glad I met you. Glad I have your acquaintance down there. It's nice to have some NMSU coverage. I think it's pertinent. So again, and I know you've had a interesting first year as a professional down in Cruces, but I think you've done good work. It's an understatement. I know I'm switching gears back to football. I know you don't have I hope that you can get an AP vote. You cover a team that probably didn't live up to what the expectations were the last 2 years. But when you look at, because you cover nationally, I just want your thoughts on the college football playoff and what you see this last week and moving forward.
Yeah, there was, of course, a lot of chaos in these last few weeks. Of course, Indiana lost, but also Ole Miss lost. Of course, Alabama lost. We talked about that. Both of those losses will probably keep Indiana in, even though they lost pretty decisively to Ohio State, which the Hoosiers needed. For the playoff, it's going to be really interesting because Texas A&M is 20, but they play Texas coming up this Saturday, and if they win that, they'll get to go to Atlanta and play Georgia. And if they win both of those games, they could jump right back in there. Of course, Georgia's going to Atlanta. It'll be really interesting to see what they do if Georgia beats Georgia Tech and then they lose the SEC championship game. Whether they drop them enough to be out, which I don't think should happen. I don't think you should be punished for, if you're in the playoff. I don't think you should be punished for losing a conference championship game after you earn the right in the regular season, after you earn the reward in the regular season to go there. So it'll be really interesting what they do in that regard. There's a lot of, both there. I think we have 2 first-round matchups that are rematches right now between, or at least interconference matchups. I know Tennessee, Georgia already played, and then you have Indiana, Penn State, which would be really interesting to see if the committee doesn't care about rematches or wants to see them or things like that. Obviously, we might get Ohio State, Oregon 3 times because they could play in the Big Ten title game next week, and then of course they could probably play in the semifinals of the playoff. And another thing off that is, I know Ohio State's the 5 seed, and they're going to have to play an extra game because of that. But their path looks substantially easier than to the semifinals than Oregon does, and Oregon has the 1 seed, But Oregon's potential quarterfinal opponent, if that holds, is that if the bracket holds, is going to be Tennessee or Georgia, and obviously that could change. But right now Ohio State would get the Big 12 champion at home, whoever that's going to be, and then they would get Boise State on a neutral field. 2 games that they should probably win pretty comfortably, especially since the first round game is going to be in Columbus. And so, that's a flaw in the format that they should probably change, or at least reseed once the quarterfinals get there. But yeah, I mean, we're all going to be experiencing something new. It's a 12-team playoff. There's going to be a lot of talk about what 2 lost teams or 3 lost teams should get in, or if this team should get in because they're in a better conference with a better schedule, or if they should just value win-loss record. There's a lot of things going around. It'll be interesting. But I like chaos, and college football is that, and so the 12-team playoff will probably be that. So we'll see. Should be interesting.
Before we know it, we might have 16 teams. I mean, that's what I love about the NCAA tournament is chaos. For football season, Nick, I'm going to still bug you once a week, maybe for New Mexico State basketball. Once again, I'm repeating myself. I'm thankful that you have joined our show since the beginning of the college football season for coverage down in Las Cruces for New Mexico State athletics. It doesn't look like you're down in Cruces, so happy Thanksgiving to you. And if you're traveling, safe travels, man. Truly, thank you for joining us.
Of course, yeah. Happy to check in from West Texas, and appreciate you inviting me on again.
No, appreciate it, Nick. Happy Thanksgiving. That was Nick Coppola and I think I've got his name right, Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News. It took me only the entire season to say. Rick, very quickly before we jump off, I got to go. Oh, man, here's our buddy Mike. Glory Days with KT, Spider Smith, Royce Clayton, David Gibson. Of course, you can go back and find us. Kenny Thomas joined us. I got to do it.
Miguel Sanchez.
Ex-Aggie Jackson Posey was on Texas Southern team. He got pretty salty with the student section and had to held back from rushing the stands. I didn't see that. Hey, I love that kind of stuff.
Well, I can't imagine they were saying anything kind to him once they found out he was a former Aggie. So
that's true.
I'm sure that he was hearing some things that were rather personal and had every right to be upset. But I didn't know he actually tried to rush the student section. Pretty scary for him. I don't think you want to run into Snake, because Snake still thinks he's a student, right? He's right there.
He's in his late 50s, so it's a solid 40 years.
Graduate, doctorate degree, could be.
I don't have any good puns. He's a doctor of slithering. I don't know. I don't have any good jokes or puns there. I'm not witty enough to do that. Yeah, maybe he's in his. He's an adjunct professor at UNM. Rick, I just wanted to. You sent this out, and I don't want this to go wasted. And again, you and everybody else on here is more of a basketball X's and O's guy, but me, I like losing money on it. And if you're still watching Dayton, UConn over, I'm on it. Boost it, baby. I'm still in it from that stupid ESPN commercial.
Let's talk about Arizona State a little bit tomorrow. I think
go right ahead.
That's more important. Go check out the Pit Press website right now. Eric Moulton put out a new article previewing not only Arizona State, but St. Mary's and USC, the other teams in the Acrisure Classic preview taking place.
Oh my God, it's not Santa Clara, it's St. Mary's. I butchered that earlier in the show. Sorry, Rick, to interrupt.
Sorry about that. Yeah, and beautiful Palm Springs taking place tomorrow evening. Going into the year, I didn't think Arizona was going to be that strong of a team, but when you look at them at Ken Palm right now, they sit at 65 and then 84 on Evan Mia. They only lost to what I think was their best game against Gonzaga by 8 points, where against some of the other teams, they kind of faltered. They did beat Grand Canyon 87-76 and also Santa Clara by a score of 81-74. I think this is going to be one of the most challenging teams New Mexico New Mexico. I almost said New Mexico State because we had Nick on. The Lobos play all year, led by freshman guard Jason Sanin and another freshman, Jaden Quaintance. And then they have some seniors to fill out the roster with a 6'9" senior forward from Ball State, Bashir Jihad, averaging 13 and 6, but also can stretch the floor with a 34% three for his career. Had 22 points against Gonzaga. So look out for Jihad down low against Nelly. Also, BJ Freeman, 6'6", transfer from Milwaukee for the Sun Devils, averaging 11.5 points a game, 34% career from three. Other weapons include Alston Mason, 13 points a game, a 6'3" senior, transfer from Montana State, actually, and almost shoots 40% from three over his 4-year career. So I think this ASU team is a little multi-dimensional on offense. Their defense, on the other hand, I don't think is as strong as New Mexico. So like we were just talking about with Kenny, for me, the difference for the New Mexico Lobos is going to be in the half court and how well they can execute. I believe they'll be able to force turnovers as they always do. Their defense is very strong, and we know they can get out and run. But when they get slowed down, when the other team doesn't turn the ball over, can they effectively score? Can they move the ball well? It always seems like it's one or two passes and then a quick shot. It's okay sometimes to let the shot clock wind and pass up a good shot for a great shot. And I think that'll be the secret to this game. But, it won't get any easier if, they're able to pull out the win late tomorrow night. St. Mary's comes in under Randy Bennett, 5-1 so far this year. They've knocked off Chattanooga and Nebraska. And then you also got USC under Coach Muss, the Muss Bus, who's lost to California, but did beat San Jose State a couple weeks ago by 14. So a lot of good teams coming in here. I think this is very important for the Lobos. If you look at Boise, I mentioned earlier, they really had a bad loss against Boston College, and I think I don't know if the conference is going to be as strong this year as last year, or let alone as strong as people were thinking at the beginning of the year. I think the set teams in the conference right now, Utah State looks very strong to me. Of course, San Diego State with their win and showing the past few days. And then I think the Lobos with those three teams right now, the others are really up for grabs. Nevada, 4 teams, I would have to say. They had a great showing as well. But Ryan, what are you looking for this weekend for the Lobos, if anything, in your mind?
I caught some of the ASU team when they played Santa Clara. They played right before them in what was it, Hoops? It wasn't Ball Dogs. Hoops Fest in Vegas when I was there. I didn't even know the name of it. But I would say getting ASU on your schedule with a coach like Bobby Hurley, who at a mid-major level did it with Buffalo. They were, I think, a perennial tournament team out of the MAC every year. Of course, that was a decade ago. When I heard he was there 10 years, my jaw dropped. I'm not even answering the question. What am I looking for? Yeah, it was a tragedy. Can you repeat the question? If they lose, Eric Musselman does what he does. I think there might be some growing pains there at USC. But I think, like I said, if you can escape UCLA and St. John's 1-1, which they did, I think if you can escape this weekend at 1-1, you're good. Obviously, 2-0. I can't. I think it would be interesting if they played St. Mary's again. 3 years in a row in a rubber match. I think that would be interesting. They've looked good against weaker competition. Again, I didn't watch the full game against Grambling, but what I saw was sluggish, and what they did against Texas Southern was a little sluggish. It's not how you start, it's how you finish, in terms of trying not to be cliche, but it's true. I'm looking for them to come out and I think Arizona State might be on. Arizona State is not San Jose State or Air Force.
The line just came out for that as well.
Oh, snap. What is it?
UNM minus 4.5.
Really? What's the over-under?
If I'm reading that correctly. Over-under is 159.5.
That's kind of interesting to me that they're minus 4.5. I just texted.
I was thinking closer to 1.5 or 2 point favorites for UNM. 4.5 is a little higher than I expected, but I think the win over UCLA kind of elevated them, and I think even though St. John's had a few losses, I think they're showing against St. John's showed that they're a strong team. I think Arizona State though is maybe a little underrated so far this year. I'm thinking it's going to be a close game and could go either way. But I'm with you. I think going 1-1 would be great this weekend. But if they go 0-2, I don't think people should overreact or freak out because all of these teams are good teams. They've had some good wins, but if they do end up losing both games, they really got to pick up another game somewhere along the way because they'll miss out on an opportunity there for possibly a quad, whatever they call it, 1 or 2 win. What is the line you're seeing? Are you seeing New Mexico favorites by 4.5?
So I'm on Action Network. It opened at 3.5 and it's jumped to 4.5. That means sharp. Somebody knows they're betting it. Somebody knows something. I mean, again, I don't expect them to just get walloped by Arizona State. I think what Pitino has done is, again, against these teams. I don't think St. John's looked like shit against Georgia. That was really, Georgia was big. Again, you're playing in the SEC. You might not be a top tier team in the SEC, but they looked big. That kind of caught me off guard against St. John's, but I thought UNM for the most part and getting it within 4 played very well against St. John's in the Garden. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, 4.5. Somebody knows something. So, but Pitino, I think just this schedule when you get, and I know they've beat up on lesser competition. I think when they kind of are reeling, I don't know if they're necessarily going to reel in late February, early March this year. I truly, in a long time, I really think this schedule benefits the hell out of them. Because if you've played a St. John's and a UCLA, a VCU, and an Arizona State, and maybe a USC or St. Mary's. I mean, St. Mary's, they're always, Randy Bennett's always doing a great job there. You're not going to be afraid of somebody in the round of 64 or maybe the first 4. I said, Lafarty still has them out of the tournament. I normally never say these things, but being that it's, he works for ESPN, I think there's a real bias against, teams that aren't in the conference, that aren't in, that don't have TV deals with them. But I think it truly benefits them. Go ahead, Rick.
One other just conference thing. I think, we got to look at Nevada, like I was saying, as one of the top teams in the conference. And I did call them my favorite on our last episode before the season kicked off. They just knocked off VCU 64-61 and then Oklahoma State 90-78 after losing a nail biter to Vandy just by 2. So that really helps elevate, the conference with those 2 wins, I believe. And right now, according to my sources, they are the top 3-point shooting team in the country. The Wolfpack are 46.6%, 55 for 118 behind the arc. And Kobe Sanders, along with Nick Davidson, has been a really special combo so far. And I'm worried about New Mexico matching up with them. And I'm also worried about Utah State. Mason Falsalev at Utah State scored over 20 points, including a win over Iowa in the recent week. They look loaded. So I think, like I mentioned, the top 4 teams, if you include San Diego State with those 2 in UNM, I think you can throw in obviously Boise as well. They're not my favorite, and I've made that known for weeks, and I think we're going to see that play out why, but you could throw those top 5 in there. There's a step down, obviously, from there in my eyes. Colorado State is, I don't think, what it was last year. We can say that. There's still time to grow and mesh, but their transfers are not hitting, and Neat Clifford and Mr. Lake definitely need some help scoring the ball, which they're not getting. So a lot of season to go, but I think there's really 5 strong teams right now in the conference.
I wanted to mention John Tonje, who transferred from Colorado State. He was looking at UNM. He's on Wisconsin. He's 15-0. They beat Pitt and UCF in some weird tournament earlier in the week that was at like a middle school gym in West Virginia. I think it's at a golf venue. I'm probably wrong. If there's anybody listening, tell me I'm stupid and I'm wrong. 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists a game, and he's shooting 54% from the field. I don't know if this is necessarily your old, your dad's Wisconsin team. This Wisconsin team can score. Go ahead, Rick.
I just have to mention it because I saw Jamal Mashburn, I think, went over, what was it, 2,000 career points or some landmark the other night for Temple. But right now, Jamal Mashburn, I know he's probably shooting 1 million shots, but 23 points a game, 47% from the field, 55% from three-point land. Now, I know me and myself included were one of the ones to always question his shot selection, but that looks very good to me right now on a Lobo team that's struggling to shoot threes, and how nicely that would have matched up. Now we have to trade that off with the defense that was all a liability, and I think CJ, we know, is a much better defender, and True is a much better defender, but lacking that three-point shooting, I can't help but look at Mashburn's stats every once in a while and wonder what that would have looked like. But I think it would have made the chemistry much different, so I don't dwell on it too long. But fantastic year for him thus far, and great job shooting the ball.
They are 4-2, and they've lost. They beat Sacred Heart Monmouth. Monmouth was a team I saw play Rutgers 2 Fridays ago. They got a stud player. He didn't miss. I got to look his name up. They lost to BC and Florida State. They beat UMass. UMass is a pretty good team. When do they play St. Joe's? I don't see St. Joe's on the schedule. I'll be damned. I thought they might have played St. Joe's. I guess they don't play them every year. I know Villanova and St. Joseph's hate each other. Yeah, I like Nevada. I think Steve Alford's got him clicking. Nick Davidson was one of the best, I think, guys we talked to there. San Jose State is beating Long Beach State, which I don't know what Long Beach State refers to themselves anymore. If it's just the beach. Yeah, it's Long Beach State Beach. All right, the beach. They used to be like the mud something. I forgot what it was.
Bags.
The dirt bags. Yeah, it was the dirt bags. They're beating the beach 79-64, 45 seconds to go. San Jose State I think had a tough time meshing, but
hey, they've won 2 in a row, I think, and our guy Will McClendon knocked down 3 or 4 threes the other night. So I think Tim Miles is just going to take some time. They got a good big man, Rob Viola, I believe his name is. Good, it's Robbie V, we'll call him. But I think they're going to win some games. And let's not forget, that's the first conference game the Lobos play. I believe it's as
next
early
Wednesday.
as December 4th. So for some reason they threw that in there, and I don't want to throw bad energy in the air, but it could be a game that the Lobos are not looking forward to after this Thanksgiving trip, right? After playing these 2 big games and you come back to play a San Jose State team that's struggling. Let's not hope for a letdown similar to what the Air Force game brought last year.
That was right in front of Nick Nunez and I. I just want to go over a little bit of the comments, and I got to go back to my guy because
Miguel Sanchez.
CJ Noland seems to have that dog in him, similar for Sacco. We were talking about the transfers. Isaiah Archuleta. What up, Kenny Thomas? What a great picture. John Romero, hope NMSU can beat Pepperdine Friday. They play them. San Jose State won, by the way. Rick, do you have any final thoughts? Do you want to go over your grade? Do you want to save that for later? It's up to you. The ball's in your...
Let's save that for another day. I think we pretty much run everyone rugged here.
Yeah, no, sounds good. I want to thank everybody for watching. Very thankful for you, Rick. I'm thankful for all the work you do. Ed Nunez, Nick Nunez, my business partner, Eric Malton, Jacob Neff, and he said tomorrow night, take the over at 157.5. And he said, I guess it's up to 159.5, but I would take the over in that. I don't know, between those two teams. I hope everybody, before I do this, I'll make this very, very quick. Because I wanted to give this out in the land. If you're looking for a way to watch the Hawaii game, 9:00 Saturday night, we're going to come to you live at some point within 2-3 hours of that. I don't want to overlap on what JJ and Ned James do. It's at 9 p.m. on Saturday night. It's very specific. You can go to the Mountain West website, and I'll put that up before we watch. If you live in Hawaii, it's Spectrum Sports. It's a pay-per-view package. You have to call a number. I don't know how many people we have listening in Hawaii. If you don't live in Hawaii, download the Team One Sports app on your phone, iPhone, Apple Store, Apple Store or Google Play, or it's just called the App Store. I'm a Samsung user, forgive me. Once you open the app, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, click on channels, search for Hawaii football, tap the icon that appears, and then tap the broadcast to watch. Please note that there are no streams on desktop computers or any connected TV device, such as Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Roku, etc. So I got to figure out how to watch that. Rick, I appreciate you joining us tonight. For Bryan Thomas, wide receiver for our St. Pius. Hey, that's a nice sweatshirt.
I'm upset with you guys. You don't bring me on to talk to a St. Pius guy. We're gonna have to talk offline. I was going to give that kid a pep talk. It might have made the difference between winning and losing.
I thought you knew he was
living and dying.
I thought, yeah, me too. I hope San Juan stole that speech and gave it to you?
I'm just kidding. I'm happy St. Pius is back in the mix. I hope everybody can enjoy some high school football. Is La Cueva playing in Albuquerque at least?
Cleveland. I don't know where the game's at.
The game's in Albuquerque.
I think the game's in Albuquerque. Yeah, thank God. Even though I'm going to probably upset some Rio Rancho people, I pray to God that St. Pius wins. It seems like it's going to be an uphill. Rick, thanks for joining. I will let you jump off. Happy Thanksgiving, and I will end the show here. We will come to you live Saturday before the Hawaii game. Everybody have a happy Thanksgiving. Don't do anything that I would do this weekend. Have a good one.